YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. We're gonna start this unbox right now. Welcome to Brian Phillips RC. We unbox them, we build them, and we radio set these things up. No exception today. This product comes from China Hobby Lines, care of Kavan or something, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I know the Super Tucano will work pretty darn tootin'. So I'm hoping this will work really good. And whatever gets them from there to here so that we can review them, that's where we're going. So that all being said, the Pulse 2200 millimeters. This comes in orange and green, I believe. The only reason I know that is because the box said 2 colors. And we have one little problem with this build, and I just want to tell you right away, since this is China Hobby Lines, we're going to use China Hobby Lines branded batteries. But we only have slightly bigger and slightly smaller than what they call out. So 5070C 4S pack. And then we have 2200 4S. And they call out, these are 30C. They call out 2600 as the minimum. So we're either a little bit too big or a little bit too small, which I'm not sure how that's gonna work out. But either way, one way or another, we're gonna review this plane, and you can get it from the links in the video description below if you want to help support Brian Phillips RC. Make sure you check down in the video description below. If you're watching a short, then we should have a link. And if you can't find it, head over to brianphillipsrc.com or bprc.me. When you follow the links, you'll help support Brian Phillips RC. All right, check this out. Here's the green one.
Oh, cool.
Sweet. Okay, so we got the orange one. And it says it's ready to radio kit. Okay, all I know is we did that one over there, which is the Falk
Yes.
1800. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's weird. And it's like, it's got some janky controls going on, and yet I really enjoy flying it for some reason because it's very light. So we're gonna see how light this is. And they said something about lightness here. They said 42 DM2. I don't know, I think that's the amount of wing loading or some such thing. I don't know, we'll find out. All I know is I'm excited to try it. So we're gonna unbox this thing right now for you. Kavan, of course, makes some nice sailplanes, and they make some different stuff. They have an L39 too. So
oh, they do?
We gotta do that sometime,
cool.
Yeah. Anyway, they got a lot of cool planes, but Kavan is a little bit more expensive in the United States because it's being imported. Much like a lot of the other brands, the difference is there's not as much brand distribution in the United States, which is nice that China Hobby Lines is doing it, which is kind of funny because China Hobby Lines is literally China in the name.
Yeah.
They do have distribution here, which is nice. And that's one of the reasons why it's nice to have distributors that are in the States, because then we can get stuff.
Well, and because it's like European or whatever,
Yes.
they call it an ARF, which is what we would call like a plug and fly.
No, they
or
call
plug and
this
play.
ready to receiver or ready.
On the box it says
Look.
ARF.
We have a flap servo and we have an aileron servo. Big reinforced flap.
Nice.
Oh, excuse me, aileron. Glued in. Nice adjustment. Should be easy to adjust. Should be easy to adjust. It looks like this will go up and down. So we're gonna use hopefully a channel on each of these. I'm pretty sure we're gonna use an AR637, okay? And that'll be a 637T. Okay, we've got this little Hextronics balance lead plug, and that is solid. Wow, weird. And then this receives screws from the top and that clips on.
Okay.
So we're gonna find out how this works. Like I said, haven't seen this plane before. That's got some real serious strength to it. Okay, so nothing like that Falk 1800. That thing is very light duty, but also because it's light duty, and when I say light duty, I don't mean like it's weak, like it's gonna break, but it definitely has kind of a weak spot on the linkages that go to the V-tail. I noticed when I was flying over some time, you can get into circumstances where you almost overspeed the controls. And that's kind of an uncomfortable situation to be in. But you can fly it forever on like a 1600 3S. So kind of an interesting, fun plane. So I'm curious to see how this one performs. That being said, we're so used to doing a lot of the more, scale looking things, and that is really where my heart is. But I love sport sailplanes. Looks like this has some pretty good serviceability too. I'm noticing they have a path to get the servo wires through. Nice protections for the wings. Nothing really to speak about on the end. These are gonna vibrate like banshees, so I'm gonna have to press those back down. I guarantee you they're gonna peel. So not real excited about that, but I'll get over it, I promise. That being said, we do have a manual in here. Looks like we may end up having a look at that a little bit. Looks like we've got something taped together here. This is probably like a slide. I don't like when they tape stuff like that directly because it makes it hard sometimes to slide it through. That's gonna be for the horizontal stabilizer almost certainly. I'm gonna see if I can score this and get this out of here without making a giant mess. Their tape is extra sticky, okay? So that's carbon fiber and it is not solid, okay? Definitely carbon fiber, you can hear from the twang. I'm just cutting this stuff out. Now, sometimes this is an optional step. It depends on if you're gonna be landing on hard surfaces or if you're gonna be landing on grass or if you're gonna be doing catches. But it looks like this has to be trimmed. Not sure if I'm gonna do that or not. But it looks like that's a protective. Now, full disclosure, when you cut this stuff, if you do cut it, sometimes I've found that the best way to cut it is with bent tip scissors that you get. They're designed for canopy cutting. And they work really nice because you can get into tight spots and still get a clean cut. And it looks like we have one control linkage that's taped down here to the bottom. And it looks like a wing joiner and then a few screws. This might actually be a pretty fast build, which is cool. I'm excited because the sun is setting, kinda. We got a ways to go, but I am hopeful if this goes super fast, it'd be cool if we could fly today. I'm usually let down about almost every time I think that.
Yes.
Because radio setups always take us longer than we expect.
But all the control linkages are on the wing and stuff, so.
I don't know, it's looking like it might actually happen. But we'll see. I don't wanna make a mistake and cause the plane to not fly well because I'm in a hurry to get past the sunset here. It's just been kind of bad flying weather for us. Ooh, I don't know if I did that when I pulled that off. See, it's kind of curly, soft. But right here, we've got nice reinforcement. This is a weird pinch hinge. Or it's like a pinch hinge, but then they put these finger hinges inside as well. And there isn't anything in there. This is gonna be the thing that goes in like that. That's the reinforcement, okay? So just looking at that, surprisingly, look at the bow. Surprisingly, there's still a little bit of bow on there. So I'm gonna work this a little bit with the pinch hinge. I don't feel like those would need it, but maybe they do too. You know, on some of these planes, especially on like the super cheap, crappy ones, you have to work the surfaces a lot, but this is not a cheap and crappy model. This is a kind of a pricey one. So, ball link installed. And that must go with the only ball link we saw right here for the elevator, okay? So then the fuse is all that's left. I mean, this has been a very, very easy unbox compared to the last one we did, which was ridiculous. That being said, it wasn't an airplane. And the one before that sucked too. It wasn't an airplane either.
Right.
We've just been, no wonder this seemed easy.
Well, yeah, but like, look at the piece count.
It's not bad, not bad at all, okay? So the fuselage, oh yeah. Ooh,
I like the orange.
Wow. I do too. Hope it doesn't disappear into the sunset. Good stiffness. Look at that assembly that receives the wings.
Wow, that's weird.
It's like solid aluminum, very weird. But like this has some like stuff, like it's strong. Oh yeah, it's got some strength to it, I love it. Oh, we never see this on sailplanes. It's always got a rudder that goes all the way down, okay?
Oh.
I really like that because then there can be some protection there. But it's not like super sturdy. It's not like it's plastic. It's just foam, so kind of weird. Seems like if you're gonna go the extra mile, you might as well wrap it in plastic or something. But we got a nice spinner here. It's got a beautiful eggshell finish to it. It's like not super smooth, but I like the angles. This is an area where I've always I always look at that on sailplanes, and sometimes they match terribly. And other times they match really good. but really sloppy trimming here. You would think that they would clean that stuff up. They have a decal material put over the top of this foam, which is kind of weird. But it's also like plastic. That is, no, that's like plastic, guys. Okay, interesting. Holy crap, what is going on there? Oh man, I do not like that.
It's like a whole breakout board situation.
Rudder, LG, ESC. I don't know what to think on that. Well, because look what it's doing. It's splitting out all these different things that are going out to the wings because they have one connector that goes out to the wings. And then you can see the backside of the brushless motor. Should be plenty of power and a really big battery bay with an XT60 and a couple of battery straps. We'll be doing our standard shelf liner trick in there eventually. I think this build is gonna be actually fairly quick. The radio setup might be a little challenging. So let's talk about well, actually we're gonna take a minute, clean up and come right back. All right, so we've got these little protective crash guard thingies that can be used, they're optional. These are the scissors I was talking about. They've got that weird bent tip on them. If we don't already link to that, here's just some standard Fiskars scissors that were in our drawer. I'll show you how that works. It does definitely get the job done. But the thing that's nice about these, I'll come in from a different angle, is that I have super high precision. I mean, it's like really, really, really easy to chop this in such a way that I really keep and maintain control.
Looks a lot more clean.
And it's not like a particularly difficult thing to do, but since this is finished work, I think I'm just gonna go with the process of cutting this out. Now, if you decide not to do this because you're not gonna belly land the thing, not really sure how you're gonna land it. I mean, if you're gonna do water landings, you wouldn't need this. It's kind of a joke, guys. Okay, so just getting around this bend, you can see it's got a little bit more reinforcement, so it's harder in this angle. So I'm gonna let this fall away, and then I'm gonna go back and undercut to the edge, okay? The last time we did this for a Kavan plane, we weren't super impressed with this step. But just to be clear, you see I've gone up next to where my standard Fiskars scissors were, and you can see I can just get in there and got a lot more control going on here. So I'm gonna cut right behind where I was working so I can get that out of the way. But you can see right here, we've got that imperfection from where I had originally cut those. And you would think it'd be fine, but like surprisingly, these things work really nice. I got these for a one-time project, and I rarely go down to get them from they're on a wall of tools. And you see, that's the one area where they kind of suck, is when you're trying to cut a straight line. So I think I'm gonna switch gears and go back to the straight cut. But one of the things that I really, really like about them is around the corners. And when you're cutting the windshields, sometimes that stuff is a little bit more brittle. You gotta be a little bit more careful.
So you're calling them like canopy scissors?
These are canopy scissors.
I'll see.
Well, it's like canopy scissors, and then people use them when they're making like cars, like car bodies. Like back in the days when I had RC10s and cars and trucks like that, I had a pair of scissors similar to this, but they're really high quality. Okay, so once that's cut out, it's imperfect, but it's good enough. Then this just goes, like, you'll know exactly where it goes because it will fit, it will feel perfect where it fits, okay? So right there is where it goes. So this is literally how you do this. They don't include the glue, so this is China glue. Next time you're getting an FMS model, make sure you stock up on this because it works really nice. You can save the shipping that way. We have links to this on our supplies page. If you don't plan on buying any models from them, just order some glue because this stuff is, I like it a little bit better than the foam to foam that we get from the Horizon world. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it spreads better. It's more tacky. It just seems to do a slightly better job. But every once in a while, they screw up and like undercut themselves on the price on that foam to foam. And they'll like put it on sale and they'll sell below cost. I don't know why they do that. Maybe it's just because they know it's eventually going to go bad and they want to get rid of it before it does. But that's just a guess. Anyway, it'd be a good time to stock up. By the way, we've never had a problem with this stuff coming out of the package dry. And we have had that problem on a couple of different mucilage type products, which is exactly what that is. So then drop this in right where it should go. It's not real hard to tell, but one of the biggest reasons I like this China glue is because I get a little bit on my fingers. I can just rub that right off. And I do recommend, if you're gonna do it this way, if you get a real big blob and it starts getting kind of warm when you're rubbing on it because the friction gets so high, you can use Kicker and it will take it off. It will help break down the bond of that glue. And you just put it on a little rag and you just wipe it right off. Okay, cool. So that's glued. Now I just need to press that back a hair. And then every once in a while, I'll check that for squareness, and that'll be our little crash barrier, okay? So then we can take this and throw it away in the garbage and discard it. And then we have another piece here. This one's gonna be even more helpful to have this. I'm assuming this is gonna go here and help protect the back. But again, you're gonna have, it's not gonna match the color very well.
Right.
So camera crew, are you gonna make it so they can see cutting, or?
I don't know if we're gonna pause since they already watched you cut one.
Well, I mean, I just want you guys to see what this takes, because here on Brian Phillips RC, we show all the steps, not because we're trying to make a tediously long video, although a lot of times they are tediously long. We want to teach you how to do it, and we also want to show you what's going on a particular build. So like if you buy this thing on a website and all you're doing is looking at renderings, because Kavan is really good at like having these weird 3D renderings. Well, they're not 3D renderings so much. It's just like a high quality drawing basically. And I'm like, yeah, that doesn't do it for me, because anybody can have a rendering and have a turd that is, you know, is actually what you sell. And they do that a lot of times in China, but this isn't a Chinese brand. This is Slovakian or something like that. I forget.
Somewhere in Europe.
It's some European nation. I always say it wrong. Sorry, Kavan. If you really cared, you'd have to work directly with us, but you don't. So China Hobby Lines, here it is. All right, but that being said, I guess what I'm getting at is anybody can put a rendering of what their engineers expected it to look like, but that doesn't mean that's the way it's gonna look. You see what happened there? I got ahead of myself. So I gotta go back in and cut again. I guess just basically, the moral of this story is, if you want it to look perfect, you have to take your time, and I'm not really usually super good at taking my time, especially since we're doing this on video. If we weren't videotaping this, I guess it would probably be a little bit different circumstance. Okay, so you get that, and I'm almost certain that that's where they would expect that this would go, okay? I did not trim that very good. See this edge? They've got that low spot. And see, this is a problem when you come in here, you can't always flatten that enough to get the blade contact points from your scissors to actually make a nice clean cut. And that's where this little angle comes in super handy. Because like you see this little spot here, then you can go right in and get a really clean cut. Problem is you have to get a clean cut all the way down there now. Okay, so we'll see how that feels. Whatever, good enough for me. Let's just glue it on and be done with it. Now, I will admit to you, China glue is usually a little bit on both sides. The piece that you're working with and the piece that you're gluing to it, okay? I didn't do that on the last one because it's such a big piece. It's a little bit, it's getting me a ton of glue is basically what it is. Okay, so I'll just do a little bit here and just kind of run it down the same point. And I can set that down and I can just put a little bit extra glue just to get that little bit extra off of the tip. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this, because I can just carefully work that from the edges. Now, if you want this to work the best, you'll let this cook off for a few minutes. And when I say cook off, I mean that chemical reaction will be started. And then you'll just let it sit there. Well, it's always gut wrenching when you're not 100% sure you got it in the right spot. Okay, so press that down, and if you want the best results, you'll peel this right back off. And you can take your finger, see that stringy stuff? Work that back onto your finger, and then you can take and spread that around a little bit. You see what happens? And I'm just gonna work this just a little bit to get that tacked up. And it's not because you wanna work the air into it, it's just that I wanna spread it out, okay? And you're not gonna smear it once it's already been touched like that. So we'll let that set for just a second. Now, one other thing we're gonna use China glue on for this particular model is gonna be where the battery goes. There will be a little bit of a wood tray, and normally you would put Velcro in there or some such thing. Well, we're not gonna do Velcro, we're gonna use a shelf liner. Of course, shelf liner would stop your stuff from sliding around like this, except I've taken all the shelf liner out of my wife's shelves, okay? So we're gonna use that instead. This should be tacked up enough. And yes, that is in real time and space. That's how long. Now, you won't believe me, but I could probably pick, if I had enough of a handhold on this, I could pick up the plane by this. It's that strong already. See, just like that. But you do have to make contact, and that's one of the things I'm struggling with on this particular piece. See, it's just an awkward place. It's like, are you actually touching or not?
Right.
So once you get contact on there, then it's gonna be fine, okay? So camera crew and I are gonna pause. I'll clean my fingers off and come right back. All right, so we're gonna pop the canopy off. And one of the things about Kavan, as I flip this over, I just wanna point out these indisparities in the decals. Kavan, you really need to figure that out, because it's just like, this isn't applied straight, it's off by a few millimeters. Factory applied decals should be applied pretty much perfect, okay? Because if you make a mistake on this, what you do is you peel it off and throw it in the garbage can, and you take another one and you put it on until it's right. That's the way it works at the factory. Now, for us, out in the cheap seats, after we've already ordered it, if we screw it up, that's our problem, okay? But when you're at the factory and you make a mistake, you peel it off, throw it in the garbage can, and put a new one on. That's the way it goes, okay? Just keep in mind, I work in factories. This is the way it should be done. Okay, wood, beautiful, wood. We're gonna take a piece of this and stick it in there, right? So normally we would stick it onto the battery, but since I don't know the exact battery size and there's quite the wide size range, I'm just gonna plop this down on there. Now, these cables will pull out of the way, and then we'll just kind of smear a little bit of China glue in there so that this can stick in there. Now, you don't even need to glue this, to be honest. It could not be glued and it would still provide all the pressure and resistance to moving that we need. So you'll notice I don't go real heavy on the glue, because it really, all you're doing is just holding it in there when you happen to be storing the airplane or whatever. Okay, so we'll just plop this down in there and just give it a little bit of rub. Because this is soft, you can kind of squish that around and leave it, and you're done. That's how hard it is to apply the shelf liner. And yes, you can pull that back out, but full disclosure, it will rip the material and you'll be left with wherever you put glue, okay? So just keep in mind, again, China glue, foam to foam, they're both gonna work well. I just find myself going back to the foam, the China glue first. It just seems to work a little bit better. And by the way, if you have shelf liner that looks like this, it will also work, but I've just found that what happens is when you get a real hot pack, or if you press it down real tight, especially in EDF jets, the adhesive will stick through it. And it's really kind of messy and difficult to use in this application. So if you find yourself in a circumstance where you're getting a lot of that happening, get that solid type. Now, I don't think we have a link to the solid type, but we have a link to just generic shelf liner,
yes,
so you guys can follow along. That's on brianphillipsrc.com/supplies, or you can head to bprc.me. That's our website, just a short link, okay? All right, so now we have to figure out how we're gonna put in the battery and mount the receiver. But before we do that, why don't we go ahead and build the plane? Should be pretty easy. Camera crew has gotten me a 2mm drive, presumably to put in these 4 screws, okay? And then we have, this wing will go on without any tools, I believe. It's just the tail feathers that you're gonna need to work this on. probably make a mechanical adjustment the first time. Did they tell us where we need to actually put which hole we're supposed to use?
I don't believe so.
Okay. If they didn't, okay, then let's just put it together.
Well, from this small little picture here, it looks like it's maybe on the inside hole. But it's not very specific.
The inside hole? Yeah.
Can't tell on that one at all.
All right, so look, I already stuck this in when we were unboxing. So I'm gonna just slide it through this hole. All right.
It's upside down.
What?
That one's upside down.
What do you mean it's upside down? I'm gonna do this first. That little stickiness caused me problems. Okay, you're correct. That goes up because the holes go up, and then there's kind of weird. There's like an inset there.
Oh.
So you have to, there it goes. Okay, so once that get lined up, you'll push that in, and then this sets in there. Uncolored in the center. I'm not a big fan of that either. Again, these are just small details. It's not like it's gonna make or break the model, but you know, we tell the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God here on Brian Phillips RC. And sometimes you might hear it and it's like, why are you beating up the manufacturers? You know, to be honest with you, we're not really beating up on anybody. We wanna be fair to manufacturers, but like some of these things are like, are you kidding me? Like, fix that. That should not even be a question. That being said, you've got a decal that's being applied, just apply the decal to wrap. So anyway, just a couple ideas. I don't really care that it's white. It's not really like a big deal. But if you're gonna have that white like that, then make this a swoop, or you know, make it artistic.
Yeah, make it a feature.
Like it was, yeah, right, like a feature. So at any rate, again, this isn't meant to be a beat up session on Kavan, but I will tell you this, the times that we've built Kavans, which we've done like 3 or 4 of them, hold still. We have had a couple of like idiosyncrasies about the Kavan builds that were like, really? Like this is, because they're not cheap. And even though I like the PC, it was a PC 12 or 6? PC 06.
6, Porter PC 6.
Let go of that, please. Thank you. Okay, so that's torqued down. I need to move the plane this time. And so I'm gonna just slide this stuff over to the side. They did give us 1 spare screw. These are 2mm drives. Move that canopy over there, camera crew, please. All right, so now that I am over on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and put this in. Now, I worked both of these a few moves just to make sure a pinch hinge wasn't really gonna have a lot of memory. And also, this will be received in this. This is opened up. You wanna come over here so they can see this? It's gonna go onto the elevator. Film from right here. That way they can see that. You see how it's rounded off? That's really nice, okay? So it's funny that, you know, I just feel like it's a mixed bag with Kavan. You get some stuff that it just seems really well thought out and like really nicely engineered. And by the way, the reason I'm having resistance here is because there's resistance on the center rod because they put tape on it to hold it in place. If that would have been inside of a plastic sleeve and then taped to the foam or however they want to secure it, that's fine. But we are experiencing a little bit of resistance there as we press because there was sticky stuff on the carbon fiber wing spar, okay? Again, not a big deal. It's just sort of like, you know, come on. Let's maybe not have those problems. That being said, this seems like probably the nicest Kavan that we've had. It's also one of the bigger ones. Because the 1800, well shoot, what was that? What was that PC? The Pilatus, which by the way, the Pilatus, the issue we had on that was that the wing struts came unglued a million times because they had like what seemed like silicone holding the wing struts to the fuse. But I love flying that plane. It's a great plane. And it's kind of like a challenge to fly. And it's the plane that I just kept wanting to fly, which is so weird because it's the same thing with the Falke 1800. That plane, you can get into weird situations where you like lose control if you're going too fast. So it's like, why is this happening? But then you're like, well, I just won't go super fast. I'm hoping this doesn't have that problem. I don't think it will. Oh, that's stripped out. Nice. So the screw stripped in that hole. That's not a good thing.
Neither of the back screws went in as far.
Did they?
The front screws.
Yeah, this one's not all the way flush. The front screw is in all the way. This one's still spinning. So yeah, it's stripped. So here's what we're gonna do. Only because I care, I want you guys to see this. You see that? Look at the threads. They're packed with plastic. That is the sort of thing that we should not be seeing on models of this echelon, okay? I know how to build stuff. Yes, I probably could have stopped, but I don't know. See, watch, I'm gonna de-thread this. See, look at this. I'm holding the threads and look what's coming out. Plastic, okay? Big corkscrew of plastic. All right, so because that one stripped out, camera crew, I think I'm gonna just put a drip of CA on it. And the only reason, by the way, this is actually a pink tip, but our tip was getting clogged because the clog was up at the top of our old pink one. So I'm gonna just see if I can this is gonna be scraping the bottom of the barrel, folks. Yeah, I think that's out. We'll pause. Okay, so I took off the tip because all I need is one tiny little bit of drip of CA. And so anybody who's ever had CA before understands the feeling. You get to the last little bit. I want to open a whole new bottle just for one drip of CA, but I can see that little schlob of CA there.
Yep.
It's coming down to the edge. Come on, get there, get there. So we'll pause until we get there. All right, so just so you guys can see, one big healthy drip of CA. This is not foam safe, and all I'm doing is putting it in there. Yep. And you're like, but isn't that gonna glue it in? Probably. And guess what? When I'm ready to take it out, then that glue will probably hold on to where the thread should have been, and it's gonna be fine, okay? Now, why do I want to have that glued? Because it's a horizontal stabilizer. It's somewhat critical on the aircraft. It's aerodynamically required. But having one screw should be enough to hold that on there. And I doubt it's gonna be a problem. So we'll just go with it. I mean, shoot, on some of these models, we have them taped on.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, that's a removable tool or a removable control surface, but now it's not removable on mine, at least not until the glue sets up. All right, so you were saying they want it on the inside hole?
Well, see, they don't have a ball link on the other ones. You cannot see on that control arm on the picture.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go to the outside one and then we'll have to adjust it accordingly, okay? All right, and then ball link, I have no idea where this is gonna go. And yes, that's on there very, very stiff. And so usually what you need is a pair of needle nose pliers at minimum, if not just a pair of regular pliers. I'm gonna use needle nose pliers. I'm gonna hold this. I'm gonna break this on or off. Did you move that? Or did it move?
I just spun.
So you see that, how it's moving? I do not know if that servo is centered or not. It doesn't really matter that much because now that I've got that freed up, I'm just gonna go ahead and snap it down. Now, if I had a ball link plier, I would be able to do the same thing, but just to show you, you don't have to have a ball link plier. You can use needle nose pliers and you'll be fine. It'll get the job done. At some point, we'll be measuring for a center of gravity, so I'm gonna just grab these now and get them ready to rock and roll. 75 to 85 millimeters back from the leading edge, by the way. I was just noticing it right there. This build is a simple build. It's gonna be a little bit less simple on the radio setup, I fear. And partly because of these connectors, okay? So there is a connector for one wing and a connector for the other. And I am not sure which one's which with certitude. I think I know which one's which.
Oh.
This one actually goes to that side. Well, except I don't know. Just because it's on that side doesn't mean it goes to that wing, I guess. I think they're flipped. So we're gonna have to be very careful how we do this, because if you have your right flap and aileron in the wrong side, you're gonna get opposite output, okay? So these are gonna receive a singular screw, I believe. So this one's gonna plug in first. You can see they're keyed. Camera crew, you're gonna have to be over my left side, probably. Okay, so you see this? Keyed, plug that in. And I don't know which one gets the front and the back. Looks like that one gets the back, okay? So this goes in. And it's supposed to just stay there. No, there's no click. Push down the flap, there is no click. There's no click. There's only gonna be a click after you have the second wing in. Okay? Camera crew, I need that wing. If you could just grab that. I'm gonna lay this down. Just pull it away. Thank you. All right, so then this one, same thing. You can go over here. This is gonna be pulled as much as I can pull, and it's gonna plug in here. Now this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's the same as a 4S battery. So that's gonna go into the front. Yep, the front hole, okay? Now listen for the click. Push the flap down. Ooh, I can grab the wingtip actually. Camera crew, go to the end, grab the wingtip. Hold it. I don't hear any click. There's the click. There's a click. It was very mild. Okay, now this will balance. And then I'm gonna grab this. This is gonna go in. Right here. Just like this, okay? Goodness gracious, it's so long. But that's because it has to go through 2 wings, okay? So here in 3 months when I'm done tightening this, I don't feel like it's getting penetration yet.
It doesn't seem like it's going.
Okay, do me a favor, put one hand on the end of the wing.
Yep.
We're pressing toward each other now, and it is going. There it is. I felt like we got purchase in one of the wings at least. Oh, that wasn't too bad. This is the sort of thing that's sometimes on the first go round, you gotta, yeah, I had to force it a little bit. Once I forced it, it was good. But you see what's happening? It's just like the hole's not wide enough. You can let go now. Actually, no, go ahead and press, that helped.
Okay.
That helped to make it easier. It's not quite big enough for my thumb and forefinger, but it might be for yours. And if you had a pair of needle nose, you could spin it that way. I just want to spin it until it's flush, okay? Or lengthwise, okay? Okay. So we're good there. Now, let's talk about receivers. We've obviously got to plug in a receiver. We've got a wire that comes up here. I'm assuming that's the ESC. Yep, that's the ESC. Then we have what looks like elevator and rudder, okay? And then up here we have ESC, LG, and rudder. What? Elevator? LG?
LG?
Never heard of that before in all these years. So then the other thing too is this is not spatially aware. It's just a breakout board. I'm not a big fan of that right there. I do not want to have to build new connectors. I'm also not 100% certain how all this is going to work because these aren't labeled. There's aileron, elevator, ESC, rudder, LG, flap. Yeah, okay. I don't know what that means. So we're going to have to take a second, clean up, and come back. All right, so we have an AR 637T, okay? This is going to be potentially the right thing for this or potentially the wrong thing. My concern is we need enough room to actually mount the battery. Camera crew's gonna come around here. Then I'm gonna open this up, all right? So no matter what happens, we gotta get the thing opened. My only predisposition between, I'm concerned that a 631 would probably work fine in this, and I figure a 630 would be even better because it's got end pins. But because I might want the pack telemetry, that's why I'm leaning toward this, okay? So pack telemetry means that we have to actually land a cable on the XT60, which is a bit of a pain because this cable is not especially long going down to the ESC in this application, okay? The other thing too that concerns me a lot is this. Those 2 wires, okay, that go out to the wings are gonna make this a lot harder than it needs to be. And they're saving me virtually no effort because I could have plugged in 4 cables and it would have been 2 extra plugs that I would have to plug in. So I'm pretty disappointed about that. That breakout board is not saving me hardly any effort. It's just making it a lot harder. Because really what I want to do is I want to set up Crow and I want to set up all these different cool features, and I'm probably not even sure I'm going to do that on this model because I do not want to have to cut and splice and do all that junk. But I'm so torn because I know some of you guys are going to want to do that with this model. I too want to do that with this model. How would one go about doing that? Okay, so obviously crow means you'd have one aileron, two ailerons, one flap, and then two flaps. You'd have 4 control surfaces, and you'd have an elevator, and then you'd have a rudder. Okay, so that's 6 channels. That's gonna be problematic, right? So that's if you're gonna do full length ailerons and crow. So instead, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do inboard flaps, aileron 1, aileron 2 for spoilers, spoilerons, crow, and then we're gonna have elevator, we're gonna have rudder, and we're gonna have throttle. So you're gonna have flaps, and then you're gonna have split ailerons. Here's the catch. I don't know if we can do that without cutting all these cables for a more sophisticated system. So I think what we're probably gonna end up doing on this is we're gonna have an inboard flap and we're gonna have outboard ailerons, okay? Which I'm not excited about it, but I don't know that there's a way to do this because I don't see aileron 1, aileron 2. I just see ailerons and I see flap on the board, okay? So the only way for us to make that work would be to identify on this cable which one is the signal, remove it, and then land that on our signal for at least one of the 2. You wouldn't have to do it for both. You could do it for just one. I don't know, maybe we'll figure it out. But I'm not sure how we're gonna do it. I'm frustrated that we have to go through that mess because really it's not, it shouldn't be that way. You know, if you got a sophisticated model like this, you know, a Y cable costs like 30 cents. Okay, so let's just have a Y cable that can be eliminated instead of these breakout boards that cause all sorts of fiascos for us. That being said, the way that we'll do it is gonna be, we're gonna use the infrastructure that's in place. We will adapt our model to have the eventuality for a second servo plug, one of the pluggable channels. Remember on the NX8 Plus, we're gonna have 20 channels available. And we're gonna have 20 channels on the AR637T, okay? But we're only gonna have 5 plugged in by default. Then we're gonna allow for the 6th, which is gonna give us the mixing capabilities for crow, okay? So as with my typical install, I twist this to just make it tidy. This little micro PH1S connector will plug in as a telemetry feed back to our receiver, so we'll know what's going on. It says right there, volt. So that's gonna be our voltage of the pack in this case. You could hypothetically get voltage of anything, but we're gonna get pack voltage, okay? One thing too is our smaller packs have an XT60 and our bigger packs have an EC5, which means we'll have to have an adapter in place. So right here, this is where we have to figure out the second big problem. That is, where is this receiver gonna sit? If we have a 2200 4S, we got plenty of room to mount that in a few different spots. But if we go with the bigger battery, we're gonna have an adapter. These are all done, by the way, so I'm just gonna pop these out real quick. We're gonna have an adapter in there that has to receive and step down to an XT60, okay? So I got an adapter like this that receives the IC5 or the EC5 in this case. So then that brings us down to an XT60. And that's because this is a 70C rated pack, so it's got a lot of additional C that we wouldn't necessarily need. I'm not sure if we need it actually on this plane, but I would assume we're gonna not need it. It's probably not that big a deal, okay? So let's just see how bad this fit is. Looks like it might fit. Now, can we get the CG to work out is the next big question. So guys, this is bigger than what they recommend. It's a 5,000, not a 4,000. So it's, you know, 20% bigger than their call out. So it might be too big. And even if it's not too big to physically fit, it might be too much weight to balance out. But I do really like the fitment right now if we can get the receiver to work. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Obviously you need to be careful because look what's right here, guys. That's the bell housing of the motor. That's gonna spin when the prop spins. Okay, so you gotta make sure that this is managed if you go this way. But look what we'll be able to do. That will definitely reach, okay? So now, where does that leave room for our receiver?
Nowhere.
That's where your problem comes in. And when you say nowhere, camera crew, you would be incorrect as well, because the ESC is down in that hole. But since this is spatially aware, then this will have to go somewhere. And it's also end pin in this case. A 631 is top pin, but it doesn't have the telemetry feature for the volts, okay? So you will have some volt pack, but not volt pack telemetry. Gosh, I'm wondering if I could just rip this off and then stuff the receiver underneath so it goes like up under there, because I bet we could get away with that then. Now, in order to plug this in, I'm just feeling like the crow is gonna shoot us in the foot on this model. That's what's gonna happen. The other thing is, look how this ESC wire comes out. That is a short lead, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's a short lead, we're gonna be limited on how we can do this. Now, let's juxtapose this to the 2200 4S. First of all, can we even hit CG with this thing? Let's see, let's just assume, all things considered, we don't even add this extra like 12 grams of weight or whatever it is, okay? Because it's not very much. Okay, so let's just put this back here. We'll pretend it's plugged in, but it's actually not plugged in. And we'll pretend that we have all the cables managed in such a way that it's gonna be safe. We don't have to worry about that getting into the bell housing of the motor, which, to be honest with you, I don't even know if the canopy is gonna go on. It does. So let's check the center of gravity. We have to mark the center of gravity. Yes, this is sort of a haphazard way of doing it. And for that reason, oh, look at that. This diagram tells us where we need to interrupt, which is the center cable of the respective aileron. So in order to peel that out, this will make it easier. Guys, look at that drawing. That tells you where you're tapping. Okay, that might not be so bad. So now we need to measure 75 to 85 millimeters. That is a hyper specific for such a big model. 75 to 85 back on the wing. We'll flip this around. It's a sweet looking plane. I want high performance out of this thing. Is my tail hitting? It is.
It is, just slightly.
It's hitting. Okay, hitting is hitting. Slightly is irrelevant. Okay, see this, guys? 75 to 80, right there. So open your calipers, turn it on, make sure it's zeroed in millimeters. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to 75 to 85. Well, that's not hyper specific. Sorry, guys. That's 10 millimeters. That's about what we were used to seeing on a size this. We're gonna have to get new batteries in these. They're about to die. Okay, so 75. Make a little dimple. 75. Oh, it slipped. Dang it. Hope I didn't screw up the other side. I'm gonna have to double check that. Do you guys see what happened? Mm-hmm. It bumped. Was it between?
I don't know. I didn't see it until you flipped it up.
Okay, so there's that one. I bumped it, guys. I bumped it. That's no me gusta. So there's the one front hole, okay? And then I have to go to 85. So we'll scroll up to 85. Uh-oh. I think my batteries are just finally giving out. If the batteries are giving out, then I'm gonna have to be kind of quick with this. So we'll get to 85. Oh, geez, I got really lucky. That's like exactly 85, okay? Yeah, that's, this one, I screwed the pooch. I must have moved it. I think I know what happened. Look what happened. I hit the plane stand. Okay, so darken the hole. Darken the hole. Now I just gotta be careful which one I'm feeling. Oh. And that's why we gotta be careful, okay? So now, this is gonna tell the tale if we can get away with the bigger battery from China Hobby Line. Because we do have 2600 4S batteries from other brands. We just don't have theirs. I figure it's kind of a disservice to you guys watching this video at home if we don't show products that you can get. Okay. I didn't do my holes in the same exact spot. That is very nose heavy. I'm probably 8-9 millimeters in front of the holes. Yeah, so I'll have to either move the battery back to be able to achieve that center of gravity that we need or that they recommend, or I'm gonna have to, see, and that's the problem is, look, Slide this back, makes it even worse. Where's the receiver go? I think the answer to our question is this is a no-go. This is too big. Dang it. I had hoped we could get away with that. Now, that being said, if you're slope soaring this thing, first of all, you won't need a huge battery like this, but you could hypothetically use a huge battery. You'll just be a little bit more nose heavy, okay? Nose heavy planes are gonna require a little bit more elevator to actuate the position of the plane, okay? So just be aware of that. It's not necessarily a big problem. We also have a 2700 4S here that's a smart battery. And I think we have 3200 4S in a smart battery. So I'm gonna go ahead and charge that one. Just let that start. And we'll just plug that into the smart charger. These are dumb batteries. They're dumb packs. They don't have any sort of battery management circuits. But we are gonna defer to the 2200 from China Hobby Line in this case. We're gonna see if we can get the center of gravity to work. I do not know if it's gonna be. Now it's probably gonna be too light now. So it's gonna be too tail heavy, okay? So we'll strap this down, but we're probably gonna have to push that like darn near up to the front, but we have to leave enough of a pocket so we can get this bulky thing down there. Okay, so like that. So I'm gonna go almost all the way up to the front. You know, the other thing we could do is we could use two 2200s in parallel instead of series. That would potentially work. Okay, so that gives us a lot of room for receiver. Let's see how it checks out for center of gravity. Now my flaps are down. I know it's probably somewhat inconsequential, but I want to be as fair and true to this as I can be. Okay, I'm at the front edge, it's tail heavy. I'm at the back edge, I'm at the back mark, and it's nose heavy. So we're probably okay here. 2200 is where it's gonna be.
Okay.
All right, so 2200, I am gonna mark that though, because now that I know that it balances out, I'm gonna mark it.
Are you okay with marking it before you put the receiver in for weight? It's not that much weight.
I'm just gonna mark it this time. So that's 2200 4S. 2200. So I'm gonna just put 4S up here because the way it was working, and then an arrow, which tells me which direction I had planned on having the battery. Now, one other thing I'm just gonna point out, I did make a little bit of a technical gaffe here when I was marking my center of gravity, partly because I was in a hurry with my bumping, and also, I just wanna show you what I did wrong. See how this isn't even? See how this isn't even? It's over here inboard and over here it's outboard. I'm gonna just go over here and just make 2 more marks. And then I'm gonna make 2 more marks. Now, why am I doing that? Because when I'm reaching under the wing of a plane, I don't want a bunch of ambiguity. It just leads to nothing but problems, especially on a sailplane, because you might actually fly with different size packs, okay, with these planes. And that's okay. Then you can make a quick Johnny on the spot adjustment. All right, so the other thing too is I just want to talk about is there is a fairly flat wing, looks a lot like a fox, okay? So I'm curious how this is gonna fly. All right, we will be able to accomplish the aileron, I think. So we'll figure out when we do the radio setup, we're gonna treat it like it's gonna be flaperons, and we're gonna basically pull this out like this, okay? We're gonna unplug that. We're gonna steal the singular plug. The singular plug, we'll actually pull it out of there. And then we're not even gonna put a connector on it. And we're gonna slide it onto the pin for this signal, okay? And if it doesn't work, then we will extend that singular wire. In fact, let's do it right now. We'll just do it to that one. It doesn't matter which one you do, you just have to steal one of them, okay? I use an X-Acto knife to do this, okay? This is the easiest way I've found to do it. I'm gonna tug back my excess, a little bit of it. So the way that this works is there's a tab right here that keeps that wire and retains it. I'm gonna press down on it and then walk back with the blade. Press down and walk back. Press down and walk back. Sometimes it goes real easy, sometimes it's a pain in the neck. on these Hextronics connectors. Yes, you could use a flat bladed screwdriver to do this if you had a small enough one, but it's sometimes it's a little easier said than done, okay? So I'm gonna take and separate these wires. You see what I'm doing? I'm just peeling these apart, peel them apart, peel them apart, peel them apart, peel them apart. I'm really only going after literally the center one, okay? Because our ground is common on this whole control circuit for all the different circuits. And just trying to press down. Yep, did I get it? See, look. Now this will give us our other aileron. Now I can just push this back in, just like that. And then this will be the other aileron. Which aileron, you say? We don't know. It's the other aileron. That's what it is. So when we set up Crow, this will give us the capability. Look what I'm doing. I'm gonna cut a slot just right here so that I can take and push this into that slot. See what I do with this blade? Pull it open, slide that down. There's our other aileron, guys. Thank you for the drawing, at least. This is gonna give us Crow, but not full-length ailerons. Now, if you want full-length ailerons, you're gonna have to jump up one layer to an 8360T, or you're gonna have to put in an Avian ESC and then do a different port mapping assignment on the bind port. That's a huge pain in the balls. I'm not doing that crap. So, now we use all the standard plugs. The ailerons on here is the ailerons as usual, and then this will be the other aileron. And then when we're ready, we'll just pop that out of that little holster that we made, okay? That holster is to remind us that that needs to be taped or plugged in, and it's gonna go, let's say it goes on channel 6. Well, then we can just plug it in. These are square members, so you can plug them in whatever direction you want, but I would go either this way or I would go this way, okay? So whenever that's done, that's gonna plug in either this way or it's gonna plug in this way on the signal pin, which is the top pin, okay? And since this will be wrapped by connectors on both sides, you're gonna have protection from short circuit onto other terminals. All right, that being said, we've got a game plan. Now we have to build a model, but before we can build a model, we have to actually tap our power. So in this model, because the way we're gonna be flying it, we're not gonna oftentimes be actually using this second strap. We could hypothetically actually pull this from the model. Hey, I kind of hate to do that though. So I really wish I could get this ESC slid forward and then pull a little extra length, but I don't know if I can. These pants do come off. You see what I just did? I pulled off the pants. Now I can take and untwist a few more twists of this. And this is where we're gonna tap our power. It's gonna be a lot easier and it's gonna be nice and protected for us, okay? So you see where I pulled the pants down? I'm gonna take the red and pass it through on the same side as the red. I'm gonna pull this back up to the end, and that stupid data line is getting in my way. Okay, so I've got the red one and I've got the black one, both passing through. Just have to pull the pants down a little bit more. Now, the easiest way to actually do it on this model, because it's so tight, would be probably just to get a soldering iron and just take this, heat it up, and get it in there. And that would be one way you could do that. Now, I'm gonna try something different on this model because I can. Hun, do you think fire?
Oh.
Yes, and spatula. I need a spatula.
Great.
Yes, like this type of spatula. This is a heat sink, okay? All I'm doing is protecting the plane, which is made of foam, from the heat of that fire, okay? I'm gonna show you guys, if you don't have a soldering iron handy, you can still do this, okay? Yes, you can do it without a soldering iron. Yes, you can do it a couple of different ways. We've shown how to do this like 47 different ways since Sunday. But you can see I want to protect everything. Camera crew, put a hand on that, please. Okay, I'm gonna get this hot with heat from fire. I don't like that. I don't have enough control over it. Okay, so we're not gonna do it that way. It's too hard to control the heat because the flame is getting to a bad spot. Let's try taser style. Does this work?
Should.
Taser. Okay. This one, you might not want that in there.
Okay.
Okay. So paying attention. This is going to do a similar characteristic thing, similar to a soldering iron, but we'll see if this works. I have a sneaky suspicion I'm going to get tased by this thing.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Move the camera so they can see. Go to the other side. Oh, dang it. Did it die already? Go to the other side.
See, I can't see it all.
Go up higher, right here, right here. Go right here. Put the camera right there. I really want them to see this if it works, but this thing is evidently out of juice. Dang it. Ooh, there we go.
We have another one.
You see what's going on? I think it's dead, guys. Dang it. Okay. All right, we have a soldering iron that is going to get hot. It's getting hot. We're going to take some of the solder and just get it in there. Get my tip prepped. I'm sorry, I was all excited about doing some easy method that doesn't require you to have a soldering iron, but then I realized it's probably way easier to just get a soldering iron out. So we've got that tip warm. I'm going to just hold them together for a second because I can do that since it's a soldering iron. So once we get this solder warm, it's going to wick in and let this thing touch. But it's not wanting to melt yet, so I'm going to grab a little bit of flux and put the flux onto the connection point, which will help heat it up. Camera crew, you want to go to the other side so you're in front of the dishwasher. Okay, so okay, there we go. I think I got it soldered to melt finally. It's very hot on my fingers. I don't know if you can see. Can you see? Mm-hmm. So just keep in mind, this is not a heavy electrical load. It's just barely anything, because it's like touching a digital multimeter to check the voltage. You don't have any load. You're just checking voltage, not current necessarily. Okay, come back. I want to show them stuff. See this? See this wire? See how it's all ugly and crappy looking? That's because I've got flux and everything on there. So I'm trying to clean it up. Once you get that wet again, try not to let it go when it's hot like that, because then you don't know if you're going to get it connected. So I don't like the way that went, so I'm going to just break off a little bit of solder. I'm going to hold this down, and I'm going to just feed it in a little bit. Just a little bit, okay? Now that I have the solder re-wet, I'm going to pull this slack, and I'll put this down into the puddle. But you have to let the solder be wet, and then you have to relax the two materials into each other. And it's very challenging to do this on a foam plane if you're using the foam plane to hold it in position, which I am. But you see how nice that, like, got a good purchase there. All right, very hot, very hot. Don't like that. Tip of my finger on fire. I could have worn a glove, but I'm way too lazy for that crap. Then this is on there, it's very well secured. This is why we don't often do this. Just in case you guys are wondering, we almost never do it this way because it's a pain. But it's a pain that is a guaranteed, like, proper connection. And so usually what we do is we just tuck it in and we get good connection. We almost never have a problem. But now that that one's nice and toasty, I can get my fingers across it. It's cooling down well. I've got a dip of flux. I'm gonna come in here and hopefully get a little quicker heating this time. I have to be kind of careful because that's foam right there. Okay, so I got a little puddle and I let it in and I'm holding it until it dries. When I say dry, I mean cools. See, it's in there good, it's in there good. So now we're done with that, okay? So we can unplug the soldering iron and let that cool. There is one additional step that you should probably take, and that is gonna look like taking alcohol, wiping the acidic flux off of these connections right there. I'm gonna go get alcohol and come back. Okay, so I've got some alcohol. I'm gonna take this alcohol and I'm gonna reach in here and clean this, okay? So you guys see what I'm doing here? I'm wiping off any of that black stuff, and that is going to help to keep the acid from creating a corrosive environment over time. And it'll also restore some of the shine and cleanness of the connection. And also, since it's cool, it's gonna cool down the connection. Now I can take and pull on the other side of the pants. These will slip out just a little bit, and then I can pull a little bit until this pair of pants goes all the way back up and snaps back on. And then we have our tap that comes out. Okay, very nice. Okay, so we're gonna give this a few twists and we're restored. And now we have a battery tap. And you're like, why didn't you shorten that line? The reason I didn't shorten that line is because we can tuck that where it needs to be and no problem. And now that I have this alcohol on a rag, I can also clean my tip, which is always a good idea. And then once that tip is clean and it's still a little bit toasty, I take and dress it with solder so that I have a nice, pretty drip on the tip of my soldering iron. As you can see, this is a rosin core solder, which is why it flows so good. And you see that nice drip? That's a beautiful way to leave your soldering iron. Just like that, okay? To cool. And that's how you keep a soldering iron from looking like death. And yet mine have historically not usually looked that great, okay? That being said, we don't do a lot of soldering because we know not everybody has access to soldering irons. If you do this hobby, you should probably have a soldering iron, just full disclosure. All right, so now we have to build a profile. And the other thing too about soldering that's, you know, just generally a good rule of thumb is because leaded solder, and if you're using the right kind, it's leaded, is a heavy metal. And it gets into your system, it can make you go crazy.
So you haven't usually washed your hands before now?
It's gotta start sometime. So typically when you're done soldering, you should wash your hands to get the lead, any sort of lead fragments, and of course any lead that you breathed in, you want to rinse out your lungs. So we're going to get back to the build now, but we have to set up the radio before we can know exactly where to plug things in. Now, ordinarily at this moment, we would be thinking about not trying to miss our opportunity to fly, except, I don't know, in all frankness, this seems to be pretty much the standard protocol. All right, so I'm going to hit back and cancel. I'm going to scroll down to add new model. I'm gonna create a new model, okay? This is gonna be how we set up our AR637T, okay? So model select, we just came from there. Model type, we just came from there. If you change that, it's gonna change it. Now you're like, well, why don't you pick a sailplane? Because we don't really need a sailplane for this. Sailplanes have intense, crazy wing types, by the way, okay? And also sailplanes don't typically have throttle. They have switches for throttle. It gets confusing and weird. Okay, somebody bumped my switches. I always start with these up, 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 and neutral in the middle. Okay, aircraft type, this is where we're gonna set the wing type. I want to have one aileron, one flap, except no, I want two ailerons and one flap, which will give us flaperons. Now, I don't think I can set it up as flaperons. You can do dual aileron or you can do flaperon, and then you can add flaps, but you'll lose the flap mode, which makes it really easy. So I suggest two ailerons, one flap. And then the normal tail type is correct. And then I'm going to select an image from the standard file. I think we have a sailplane in here somewhere, don't we? It's like a crescendo or something.
Yeah.
Do we? Let's do that. Nope, it's not a T-tail. It does have a motor. Ooh, that's pretty dang close.
That's pretty good.
Okay, all right, so out we go. Flight mode setup, we're gonna set that to switch D. Switch D is gonna then give us spoken flight modes. In this case, I'm gonna highlight cancel, cancel, or escape, escape, clears it. And then I'm gonna type in AS3X, which stands for Artificial Stabilization, 3-axis. Artificial Stabilization, 3-axis. Where is 3? 3, AS3X, okay? So that stands for Artificial Stabilization, 3-axis. And then I'll scroll way down to here and come back. All right, AS3X mode, then she's gonna talk. Then in this one, it's gonna be off. Highlight, cancel, cancel. Now, why would you make an off mode? An off mode is really nice when you're thermaling with a sailplane, and so it's very especially helpful. The other thing that's really nice about the AR637T is that we have a barometer in it, and we will get a vario on this plane. I usually set up the vario to be on with one of the C conditions, and we'll talk about that after a bit. But in this case, we're going to make this say off at this moment. So we have to find the audio event to attach to off. Okay, so we've got AS3X mode, then off, then this one's gonna be safe, which I don't really use safe, but safe is really nice for hand launch assist, and that is going to be calculating as a function of AS3X plus, AS3X sensor assisted flight envelope, safe, auto levels the plane, but AS3X plus is kind of the basis with which safe rides on. There's also going to be limited bank and pinch angles, which we open it up to the widest angles that you can get. But then there's also a hand launch assist, okay? So it's going to say this on the main screen, and it's going to say that. It's going to say that verbally. So I got to change that to say safe. Okay, so safe mode. Okay, so the spoken thing is something you pick, and then this is what you want it to say. Now remember, that doesn't actually set the mode. It's just a verbal cue and a visual cue that we can see. Then channel assign, let's just see what we have going on here. It looks like channel 7 is automatically set to B. I'm gonna be using B for my flat mode, so I'm gonna inhibit that so I don't have that attachment. Aux 8 is fine for the rotary knob, which is up here. That's gonna be our master gain. So we will go ahead and use aux 8 for that. We don't have to worry about thrust reverse on this model because it's basically, it doesn't have landing gear. So even if there was thrust reverse, we wouldn't be using it, okay? All right, and then we can walk back out. Let's go to servo setup, excuse me. Let's go to rates and expo. Let's set up rates and expo. On switch F, I want a 3-position switch. The lowest is gonna be 5, then we're gonna have 10. We'll start at 10. We have a doubling and halving effect. So on this, we're gonna double it to 20. And then we're gonna drop the rates down to 90%. So we have full rates at 10% expo. This is a little bit more touchy. We have our kind of like our neutral starting point, and then we double it and we reduce the rates a little bit. So if it's too touchy, okay? We do that on ailerons, then we do it on elevator, then we do it on rudder. And what we do is we pretty much start at 10% expo all the time on most models that we set up in this platform, okay? Which is DSMX Airware through Spectrum here. Okay, so 5. Airware is the software application on this. DSMX is the protocol that's being sent back and forth between the transmitter and the receiver. Okay, very good. So we've got 10%. And if we have it's too touchy, we can go back here for a little bit less. And if it's not touchy enough, we can go up here. Then when we land, we would reset to the setting that we ultimately ended in, okay? All right, so then we're not gonna mess with differential. Throttle cut we definitely want. Throttle cut is on switch H. Now that we've acknowledged that, we're gonna look down here, it says -100, and it is still -100 regardless of the stick condition, which means it's working. Let's turn off the throttle cut, and we are live, and you can see it would be running the throttle at this point. Throttle cut's back on. and tested to work, okay? Later, we'll set up our forward programming, and the flap system we're gonna attach to switch B, but because we don't know any of the positions yet, I don't wanna overdrive servos, and I'll set this to 2 seconds now, but I'm actually gonna disassociate that. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna basically mean, now, since it's already associated, you would have to inhibit this. Then it disappears, okay? The reason we're doing that is because I don't know how it's gonna respond, okay? Now, we can start hooking things up based on where everything goes. So channel 1 is throttle, then right aileron, then elevator, then rudder, then flap, then left aileron, then so on and so forth. These are unpluggables, and these are the rest of the unpluggables, okay? So the first 6 channels are pluggable, okay? So now we can start plugging stuff in. This is what we're talking about. Radio setup on Brian Phillips RC is a way of life for us. On this channel, we've been doing this for years. Every time we set up a model, we do a radio setup, and 99.9% of the time, you guys can go back and find any video we've done, any flight, and you can see how I did it on the radio setup. Sometimes there's changes on the maiden flight, so make sure you watch the maiden flights before you go into subsequent flights. We do sometimes make changes, but we usually go over it in some detail, okay? All right, that being said, long videos make for long form content. Make sure you smash the like button if you like this video content. Otherwise, YouTube will assume you hate it and not recommend it. Aileron is here, so that's gonna be, of course, this one. So whatever this one is, which would be the right aileron, we can plug in. You'll notice there's a black. The black is down. How do we know that? It's silk screened on here, negative plus S. Plus is power, so power is red. Signal is white, and black is ground. So we want black to go down. I'm gonna flip this over. We're gonna start doing cable management as we do this. So we gotta get into channel 2 with the white up. How do we know it's channel 2? Because we look down at our controller and it says channel 2 is right aileron. Why do we know this is the right aileron? Because it goes to this side and this is labeled aileron. So this would normally split out and go to both, but we have separated the left aileron in this event right here, okay? So left aileron could be plugged in at any point, but it's gonna be the most awkward to plug in, so we're gonna keep going down the list. The second one, just take my word for it, is elevator, because I have to like hold everything up to see it. Elevator is on channel 1, right?
No, 3.
3? Okay, so look guys, black is down. I gotta do a half twist. When I say half twist, it's black and then it flips, okay? All right, then the next one is ESC. What? That's so weird. ESC, so we're gonna go over the top or under. We'll go under this time. And then we need white to go up. That's on port 1. Bind program SRXL2 is on the top, so we're not using that. We'll use the bind button when we're ready. All right, so this next one is rudder. Rudder is on what
4.
channel? 4? So 4. And then it goes to landing gear if it existed, but there is no landing gear in this model, so we're not gonna have to worry about that. And then this is the last, and that is flap. So flap is gonna be on which channel?
6.
6.
No, flap is on 5 this time.
It's on 5, okay? So real quick, I just wanna see, trying to mimic the same setup. So I wanna flip it this way. So it's on 5.
5.
Then you'll notice what I've done is I've made the half twist the same on all of them. And now I've got this nice and tidy, and I've taken up some of the slack. Now I can plug this in to channel 6, and you'll notice it's shorter than the rest of them, okay? We don't have an infinite amount of length here. Now there's 2 ways you can handle this. You could use an extension cord if you're unsure, and that would give you a regular cable that would go out to this. You could secure it that way if it made you feel more comfortable. Now, I'll be honest with you, there were some cables that went down here. You could also just plug in the elevator and the rudder, because look, this would just give you more length if you needed it, okay? And they've just tucked the excess down into this pocket, which is where the ESC is. There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't need the breakout board to make that happen, okay? If you guys are following what I'm saying. The other thing too is if you really wanted it, you could undo this programming port for the ESC, take this out, and you could use this to make this into a standard connector by sliding it on, okay? And what you would do is you would just line it up so that it that holds it that way. If it makes you feel better, you can do that. But for me, I don't need that reassurance unless I have a reluctance about this staying in there. I don't see any problem with that being in there and staying in there. Feels like it's going to be just fine, guys, because it's biting the pin just fine. Now, the other thing you could do is you could put a little China glue or CA to just hold that in position. If in doubt, the other thing you could do is you could take one of your 4 trillion bind plugs that you're probably never using, and you could slide that over the top of that. That's why I keep stuff like that, okay? But it looks like we have enough length, provided the receiver sits somewhere relatively close, okay? So just keep in mind, we don't have an infinite amount of choices for mounting this. But since this is spatially aware, it does matter, okay? So you see this? This is the plug for the ESC going down between these legs. I don't like that. The pin white is up. I'm pulling this out, okay? So I unplug that. Gosh, I do not like the way that comes out. I'm gonna pull that the other way. Okay, and then I'm gonna come back in here. I'm gonna actually get forceps. Forceps make it easier to do this type of setup because you can reach into tight spots. I should apologize. When we're filming, it gets sometimes a little bit tight. And so camera crew and I sometimes trip over each other a little bit. This has been one of those models. Okay, so you see I've got that held so the white goes up. Going back to the ESC plug on this little breakout board. Okay, so it's back in there. I am not a fan of this breakout board. It just seems totally ludicrous. But they didn't ask my opinion. Okay, so now this is soldered, so we have pretty good retention on it, so we don't have to worry about it coming undone. But if you were in any doubt, you could also tie a knot in this. But in my case, I'm gonna actually tuck this down into this cavity because we don't need that much length to reach the receiver, which is our next thing we have to reach, okay? So you see, if this wasn't a spatially aware receiver, you wouldn't have to worry about where this receiver mounts. You could just stuff it down in that pocket, provided the ESC doesn't get too hot and catch on fire or melt your receiver, right? But I'd really rather keep it away from there. I just think it's a good rule of thumb. Now you see our limitations for length are set now by only that white cable still. So you see that's wrong because that line is wrong. So let's twist this. That is correct because you can see that line, that rib is correct. And it should pop right in. Good, okay. So now we can take that and we can make kind of a tight bend. And we can go back here and just chase that. In fact, I'm gonna take this wire because I can, for cable management reasons. I'm gonna take this wire and I'm gonna tuck this down in there a little bit better. And then all I'm gonna do, come out, do a nice little loop-de-loo around there, a nice little loop-de-loo, and then I'm gonna pull just a little bit, okay? Then I'm gonna take, and I'm gonna run this back up to where it belongs, and I'm gonna flip it 180 degrees again. I'm gonna go actually a couple more twists, okay? Gotta go a couple and a half. There we go, there's a half. That's correct. Now you'll notice what that does is that binds everything physically in the correct orientation together. So you have nice cable management already, notwithstanding the fact that we have a very short battery lead, okay? So I'm forcing the ESC up into this cavity here, and that's giving us a little bit of room down there in that pocket. Ooh, man, that's tempting. Look at that. Look at that tempting pocket we could slither down into. Gosh, that would be a nice place to live. I don't think we can get there though, okay? So because I don't think we can get there, I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna land this so I can physically mount it, okay? So you see what I'm doing? I'm just repositioning because obviously all the cables are landed now. This is probably gonna live on the side like this. But because I'm not 100% certain how this is gonna work, I'm gonna defer to do something I didn't think I was gonna do. I'm gonna steal a bind plug cover. Now, like I said, if you want, you can steal this from the existing yellow cable, but I'm just gonna take a rando bind plug from my millions of bind plugs that I don't use on a routine basis. And it looks like whatever this one is, there's nothing special about it. It's just the one that I grabbed. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to do this because we have missed our opportunity to fly, so we might as well make this work best possible. All right, so how do you do this? The signal on this would be where? How do you know? Good question, me. Good question. You would normally be able to just plug this in and you can see there's like a D shape to it. A little bit here and a little bit there. And that's only gonna fit one way. Now, if you try to go the other way, it's gonna fit if you jam it. Yeah, it fits pretty good either way. So I think we'll be okay either way. Yeah, so I think that's the correct way. So signal would be up. So up is here. This is super easy because all you gotta do is just peel up on this connector. Now there's two ways you can do this. You peel up on that and then you pull out whatever comes out here. Okay. So once that comes out, look at that. You've got that cable there now. So now, two ways of doing this. This is supposed to have a retention clip that sticks out the top. You see that little clip that goes out the top? Zoom really close. You gotta zoom super close. You guys see that little tab? Mm-hmm. That tab is the tab that's gonna catch on this connector. And you're probably thinking to yourself, but Brian, that's the wrong type of connector because that's a Hextronics balance lead. You would be correct, okay? So there's two ways you can do this. You can either bear with this and it's good enough and it'll work, or you can take this balance lead and you can use that. In fact, now that I recognize what I'm dealing with, we have our soldering iron up here. There's two ways you can solve this. You can take a bind plug that has a real long lead, so it's easy and super convenient, like one of these, super long, super convenient. And what we already did, I'm gonna grab a pair of strippers. I'm gonna show you this, okay? So this connector, a little bit different style, but we got lots of extra length. So I'm actually gonna leave my signal in there. This one, there's a little bit of an angle and a little bit of an angle. Let's make sure we validate that. So that's the way that would go, and that's the way that would not go. But it will fit, okay? So the correct way would be here, okay? So we wanna deal with this cable, this side. So this one's gonna come out. Why is it gonna come out? Well, because it's not necessary. And that's how we're gonna connect our existing crap. So I'll keep this forever. I only need a tiny little bit of this length, okay? Then I can take care of whatever the stupid release reset button thingy is. I can put my lid on my knife so I don't accidentally slash myself open. And then I can take and strip this lead back, okay? So now, two ways to do this. You can either solder this and force it into that connector, which would be ridiculous, or you can cut it off. I'll keep that forever too, just in case we need it. Then I can take this and I can chop off the sheath, and then we can solder these together. And then you end up with a nice connector that goes in. Now, you could have just done it the way I had it before and it would have been perfectly fine. But once you get that sucker soldered together, then you have a really nice connection. And then your signal for the second aileron is just gonna plug right in, just like that, okay? Pretty easy peasy, okay? And if you want even better cable retention, you can actually leave this in even though it's not attached to anything. Just make sure that your tab is up, okay? This tab would need to be up. No, excuse me. Let me show you. We'll go this way. So that'll help retain that. But since we're not actually using that cable, we'll just leave it naked, okay? Now, do be a little bit careful. That can short out, okay? So when we tape this joint that we're soldering together, we'll tape over that as well. But watch what happens. Then that helps to retain it in your connector. So you've seen 2 or 3 different ways to do it. There's not like, it's not like one way is more right than the other. It's just what is your comfort level for a particular setup, okay? All right, so now full disclosure, you can also build an end on there, and then that end will allow you to plug in. But the reason I keep this end is because it's a Hextronics balance lead end, and it's kind of an unusuality. But believe it or not, I actually have had to use those before. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna solder these two together, and you can see that this is a pretty small wire, but we're talking about a signal level, and we're talking about extremely small amounts of current demand, okay? So that's getting nice and toasty. And so make sure when you do this, you don't have those twisted if you do it my way, which is to put them together without actually braiding them together at all. Just kind of interlace your cabling, okay? And of course, it's gonna fight me now that we've done this on camera. Now, the other thing is, like I said, you can actually build, one of these servo ends on, and it's no problem. I'm not a big fan of doing it myself. Okay. So you remember that little cut I made? That little cut is gonna hold this for us. If I can just get it to pull down in there, which I did, except it wants to let go every time. Dang it. Hold that, please. Okay. So you notice it's wanting to relieve itself. So that's no me gusta. So bend that until it goes where you want. Okay. See the interlacing? Mm-hmm. I like this type of interlace because I feel like it holds really nicely. Okay, a little bit of flux. We're just dropping just the most teensy little bit of solder on there. Why? Because it doesn't hardly take any to hold these together. And then once we get those together, then the capillary effect will actually pull those wires. And what doesn't get pulled, get this. Lick your fingers, push them together quick, and then get some fresh solder. Now you can get the memory in your cable to where you want it to sit. Now you could plug this in, but you run the risk of getting heat all the way into the receiver. So I'll do it that way. So you just got to be aware that if you get this super duper hot, you could damage your receiver. But I don't think most people are going to do that because you won't need but 2 or 3 seconds to get this solder. Now this tip is not very super clean. So I'm going to just move my transmitter so it doesn't splash on the screen. A little bit of flux. Get that on there. Get it nice and clean. Go into this thing. Camera crew, are you showing the people what I'm doing down here? Are you showing them this? Okay, I can't tell. Okay, see that? Nice clean tip. Now I don't want that to drip. See how it wants to let go? That's super annoying and a reality of soldering very small cable, okay? So now I'm manipulating the angle of both cables so it can rest and relax into a comfortable position where the only way that's gonna come undone is because it gets so hot that it melts and then undoes itself from the mechanical connection outside, which would be heat shrink, if I cared enough to put heat shrink, which I don't. So instead, I'm gonna take a piece of vinyl tape, and while it's still nice and toasty, I can go around it. But since I have some alcohol sitting right here, I'm gonna use some alcohol to clean this first. A little bit goes on the rag. By the way, that's just medical alcohol. It's cheaper than full isopropyl alcohol that you would get for electronics projects and stuff because I think it's a ripoff, okay? And then we keep tons of that stuff in stock. And it's cheap. What does that stuff cost? Like $3 or something at Walmart?
Maybe, tops.
So we'll just tape right here. And then you can see right there, we got a nice joint. Press it around there. And remember, what is it gonna take for that to break? Twofold. One, you get that thing so hot from the current flow going to the servo, which is like never ever in a million years gonna happen, that it physically is also under tension or compression such that they overlap. You're not gonna fail here. You're gonna fail somewhere else. That's what's gonna happen. So we now have a good solid connection into the receiver. And then because this could hypothetically touch something that you don't want it to touch, I'll show you the trick of the day. It's super, super easy. See how much of this electrical tape? I'm barely taking any. And all I need to do is just do a little half fold over the tip. And this will eliminate that risk. And that's all you got to do. Because it's really not necessary at all, okay? But we're just gonna play it safe here in case somebody that's new to the game is trying things out. Now remember what we did, we cleaned the tip, we fluxed the tip, we solder the tip, and we just let that work and give it a nice healthy dose of clean perfection. And because we have alcohol here, we can clean this real quick and make it so that we have a nice clean surface for the next time. And you see how it kind of turns that brown color. As soon as you get your solder on there, it'll go back to being beautiful, okay? And it does take a minute for stuff to cool down, so just keep in mind you might have to do that a couple of times. But I'm telling you right now, when I see people soldering irons, it makes me cringe. I helped a family member yesterday doing some stuff on a car stereo thing. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but that's how I got started into electronics, is with stereos and electronics, TVs and surround sounds and stuff like that. And that's how I got into doing electronics. So in case you were wondering. All right, so it was not RC. All right, so now that this is done, we've got that all resituated and it's all plugged in and it's ready to go. So the only cable management really left at this moment is to manage where this is gonna go. And where I want it to go, I'm gonna keep these antennas. You don't wanna kink these, so you gotta be kind of gentle with them. I'm gonna push this back because remember, when we have to move this cable, now we can go back into the cavity where it came from and we don't have to worry about ripping it out, okay? And look at that, it's all gonna be together in the same spot. The only thing we have to figure out now is, are we gonna glue it? Are we gonna stick it in there permanently? I think we just commit, that's probably where it needs to go. There's not a whole lot more options that we can pick on. So now I'm gonna use a little bit of China glue for this, just a little bit of slather on there. And once we slather it on there, I'm just gonna wipe it up and down, and then I'm gonna tack it in there, just give it a little press into the spot where I believe it's gonna go. And then I'm gonna take and spread a little bit of this on the side of the aircraft. Camera crew, if you're on the other side, you might be able to see. So I'm gonna just slather that right there on the side, and I'm gonna let that tack up, and then I'm just gonna go a little bit heavier here so that we have a little bit of a bridge if we have imperfections on the side of the foam, okay? Now we've used China glue quite a bit in this video, and China glue is one of my favorite tools. So if you guys need stuff like this, you don't know where to find it, just look no further than Brian Phillips RC /supplies or bprc.me, and that will get you to the same place. Now, if you're brand new to the hobby and you don't have any of this stuff, that's a great place where you can find some of the things we use on a routine, like CA, which is cyanoacrylate, I think is what it is. So it's just super glue. And super glue, by the way, you can use any super glue you want, but the models that we use a lot of CA, and I like Bob Smith Industries CA, even though my tips are always clogging and it drives me crazy. That being said, this is probably set up, okay? So if it's set up, that means I can stick it in there to where I want it, but just keep in mind, we're gonna be sticking it in there and it's gonna be like ready to rock. Like it's gonna go where it goes and it's not gonna give us a lot of back and forth because this is set up so much, okay? Now watch this. Watch how, yeah, see it's resisting already, sliding back there. See? Stick it in and it's there. That's where it is. Okay, now, we got these two antennas. Yes, they are not antennae, they're antennas. I had somebody tell me that. Antennae are animals. Antennae, rather. This is gonna go back just this way. And it's just gonna be very carefully guided back. And that's gonna be lengthwise, but I don't like that. I wanna go in front of this bundle of cables right here. And if I can get it to go back underneath everything, I'll have a better crack at success, in my opinion, okay? So I'm gonna grab back here. The last 28 millimeters is the active part. That's why it's uncovered from the gray. I am not pinching this with my fingers on the forceps. So I'm just guiding it very carefully. And once I get that to where it's guided all the way back, and it's just a little bit at a time. Sometimes it goes really easy and other times it does like it's doing this time where it takes 14 pushes, okay? I don't care if it moves slightly, it's still gonna give us enough diversity action. Now, this would be diversity, that would be diversity, this would be the same direction. That's not what you want. You want it inherently 90 degrees different, okay? That's the rule of thumb, 90 degrees different so that you have the biggest shift differential. And there's people that can explain more or better than I can because I don't understand enough more than what I just explained. So I'm not gonna go any further. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this with my middle finger just to guide it back. And you're probably wondering, why are you pushing that back there, Brian? I thought you said you don't want them to go the same direction. They're not gonna go the same direction, that's the key. I'm gonna carefully get the excess back there, and then I'm gonna be left with what I can play with, which is right here. Now watch this, guys. Go to the other side. This is gonna go back here, and it's gonna go vertical, okay? So watch this. I'm gonna push into the foam with my forceps and make a pocket. And that pocket is gonna be where I can stuff that down in there very carefully. And that's just gonna trap it up against the foam. And then that can go right there. Now, there's a few different ways you can handle that, the best of which would be to just basically glue it on the side, which is what I'm gonna do. You can also tape it on there. I don't think I want to tape it with black tape. It's just more material than necessary to get the job done, okay? Remember, the thinner you can apply adhesive or covering over the top of an antenna, the more likely you are to not create interference, okay? So pull off the cap, drop it on the ground, make it really a pain in the butt to pick back up, put it on your finger, get in there, slather it where you expect it to go, okay? Now, that's where I expect it to go doesn't mean it's gonna go there. That's where I want it to go. And so now I need to let that set up so they can get really tacky, like Brian Phillips RC jokes, okay? So once that's tacky, we can just apply it to the side of the fuse, and then we have one that goes this way and one that goes this way. And the only one that we really need to resist movement is the one that's vertical, which is right here, okay? Oh yeah, it's tacky. See how it sticks? It's like it was born to live there. See that? Mm-hmm. That ain't moving. That ain't going anywhere, okay? Now, if you were worried, you could apply a piece of tape over the top of it, but to be honest with you, you're not gonna be like fingering in there too much. Right?
Right.
Okay. All right, so you're probably wondering to yourself, boy, it seems like it would have made good sense to test all that crap before you like cut and pasted everything in there. Yeah, maybe. Okay, watch. See this? Now I've got this big chunk of something, and I've got this stupid wire here. I'm gonna just tuck this stupid wire up here. See if I can kind of stuff it behind the receiver, just right there. Good enough for me, okay? So now, I had thought about the concept of maybe twisty tying this or zip tying this together just to keep everything together, because cable management wise, it's not that bad. What do you think?
Might help. Just one.
Just one, yeah, one zip tie. Cable management 101, zip tie around, hold everything together. Remember, it's not just about cable management. This is also about keeping the risk of accidentally damaging the airplane to a minimum, okay? All right, so bring this thing forward so that the prop is clear in case it starts. If it starts, that would suck, it'd be awkward. Throttle cut's on. We already know that we landed the cables in the right spot. Throttle stick is down, throttle cut is on, throttle stick is down, throttle cut is on. That's 3 times I checked. Okay, if this starts, it's gonna cut me badly. I don't believe it's gonna start, but I still don't wanna risk it. So I gotta be a little bit careful how I do this So I'm gonna get myself in a physical different position so that when I plug it in on the first go around, I still have to bind this, okay? It shouldn't even be capable of starting, but if it does, what are you gonna do? Write a letter to the editor? Okay. I rotated this around, I plugged it in. Nothing happened because it's not armed yet, because it's not capable of arming. Now I'm gonna reach in here and I'm gonna press this button. Camera crew, can you make it so they can see? See this? I gotta reach in and press this button here, okay? This button's gonna be kind of hard to get to. Where is that button? Oh, it's way up there, dang it. Of course. Yeah, where is that button?
No, it's towards the back because your antennas are at the front, right?
Oh, no. It's all the way at the front, isn't it? Where is it? Okay, guys, you see what I'm doing with my hands? I'm just straddling around the aircraft. It's way up here. Okay, if this starts, it won't. But if it starts, I'm gonna be safe, okay? All right, see it's flashing now? Okay, cam crew, be safe. Make sure you're safe. You're not safe there, go around. Okay, so click, scroll down, till it says bind. Bind, bind. Okay. Bind complete. Now it's doing auto configuration. So it's checking to see what type of telemetry data that we can expect, okay? All right, so it comes up with the timer. I'm gonna clear the timer. First thing I'm gonna do is I am going to, camera crew, please, right where you were. Thank you. Throttle cut is working. Throttle cut is on. I'm turning it off. Going the right direction. That's 50% throttle. Throttle cut's on. That's braking. It's not very strong braking. It's kind of like middle braking. I don't know. Yeah, that's definitely braking though, because it's wanting to stop, which will fold those props as soon as it brakes, okay? So throttle cut is on, throttle cut is tested, throttle cut is on, throttle cut is tested, and it's working. Okay, now we can continue the rest of our testing. So first things first, let's get ourselves physically oriented so we can see the surfaces. Elevator up, elevator down, goes the right direction, but we have a nasty mechanical adjustment to make. Roll left, roll right, okay. So we know that both ailerons are working. That means that we didn't do all our work in vain. When I roll left, it's gonna roll the plane left. When I roll right, it's gonna roll the plane right. You can tell because when I push the stick, it would move the plane. Push the stick, it would move the plane. I'm moving the transmitter like the plane. Okay, so to move the plane this way, it would push that wing down, it would pull that wing up, good. To move the plane that way, it would push that wing up, it would pull that wing down, great. Elevator up, elevator down. Yaw left, yaw right. That's wrong. Why is this named acro? We never actually named it. Okay, so first things first, let's go to servo setup, travel, reverse, rudder. Yaw left, yaw right, very good. Roll left, roll right, elevator up, elevator down. We need to fix this. Also, the flaps are not making me happy. Turn it on to switch B. One position, wrong way. You hear that noise? I just wanted to get it to a neutral state, okay? That's neutral enough for us to continue what we're doing, okay? So now I can move this plane into a spot where I can see good. These decals are gonna be obnoxious. I have to press them down. And I'm hearing, I don't know if you could hear the noise, but there was a chattering noise I was hearing on the flap servo, okay? So we gotta get this thing extended out. We're gonna deal with flaps after a minute, but I just wanted to make sure that we could have them neutral because I felt like it was overdriving the servo, possibly binding something, okay? We also have an indisparity here. This is further down than that, so we'll have to fix that as well. That's not a hard thing to fix. We'll show you how to do it here in just a second. But just real quick, we have all the surfaces moving in the right direction. And we know what direction things are going now. So it looks like that's, ordinarily this would be takeoff flaps, excuse me, this would be normal. So I'm gonna set this to -100. So then takeoff flaps, highlight this. I want it to barely go down. So let's go to like 60, negative 60. And then full landing flaps. You guys see how far down I'm going there? Remember, we only have inboard flaps, so we're not gonna be putting these up at all. And this is gonna be like crazy crow setting, okay?
2 minutes.
Okay, so there's normal flight mode. And you see, since we're at 100, we have to go to servo setup, and we have to go to flap. And you see what I'm doing? I'm walking it up, walking it up. See, I'm gonna do 125 up, and I'm gonna do 125 down. That's gonna give us more throw. And it's also gonna bring us up to the home position on this one. And that one's super close now, see? Mm-hmm. So now we go to takeoff flaps, we go to landing flaps, which will be crow, okay? And then let's set up the crow real quick. Servo setup, let's go ahead and make our ailerons move to 125 each. So up and down. And that's just gonna give us more movement. Okay, very good. All right, then let's see if we can get this before our camera dies. Flap system. Elevator correction, let's do 6 and 9. Let's make sure it goes the right way. So looking at this, it should go down. It does, very good. So we'll go back to neutral setting. And then in crow, we're gonna have the ailerons go up. See how they're going up? And they're still operating as ailerons. So now we have crow, we have a takeoff flap setting, and then we have a landing or just a regular flight mode. Okay, so takeoff flaps, landing flaps with crow. Very good. Okay, guys, we're gonna lose power on our camera, so we'll come right back. All right, so we're gonna pick up where we left off. Mike ran out of, or not Mike, but the camera ran out. I typed in a name. I'm gonna show you how I did it. I scrolled down to system setup, disconnect RF, and I did model name, and then I just scrolled in Kavan pulse 2.2 meter. I hit back, I walk back out here. Then I was in servo setup, and I thought about one other thing. I said, let's open up the travel. So I'm gonna clear that back to normal. So the rudder was moving, and it was moving fine, but I was like, I want more travel. So I clicked onto it, onto rudder, and open it all the way up. And all I did was I moved it to the outside perimeter, and I just walked it back until I started seeing it creep. And so you can see on this side, it's moving right away. Yep. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight those. I'm gonna clear it, and I'm gonna set it to like 145. Because when you click them together, it'll move both at the same time. Okay, then I'm gonna acknowledge and verify we don't have any binding here. And we don't have any binding here, and we don't have any binding here. And you gotta check this inside spot so that when the elevator goes up and down, you have to make sure you're not gonna hit, and we're not gonna hit. Okay, great. So that's done. Now we need to go back in. We left where we last left off. We were in flaps, kind of screwing with flaps. And you can see takeoff flaps. That's the normal flight position is minus 100. Then takeoff flaps are minus 50. And then landing flaps go to plus 60. So it's kind of like reverse, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a positional change. Then for the crow, I don't have any crow on takeoff flaps. There's no reason for that. But then on landing, I have crow, this 50% as I go up, brings the ailerons up. They continue to work, but what's gonna happen is I notice that this side stopped prematurely. See how that side's moving, but this side's not? There it goes. So at about 60, high 60s, they both start to move. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring it down to 50 and just see if I get a little bit of upward movement on both sides. I'm good with that. Now, one thing to watch out for, you can have your servo overdrive, so you gotta really stick your head in there and verify that you're not gonna be bottoming it out, which we are bottoming it out on this. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring this back to neutral, and now we have to center these positions, okay? So you notice that this is is good at the inboard portion, but out here, this is high. But this is also high here, so that means the aileron is actually high. So we need to undo this set screw, and we have a 1.5 millimeter drive right here. And we're just gonna loosen this drive, this little grub screw, loosen it. That's gonna let go of the bite on the shaft here, and you can move this mechanically. I'm gonna take my finger and thumb and just hold that down and then retighten it, okay? And then that lines it up here and here. And then when I move the aileron, we still get movement. Did you see it didn't come back to home when I let off? It would come back to home, I think, under some air pressure from forward momentum, but that's disappointing, okay? That is something we've seen on Kavans, is that the servos you would think would be pretty high quality, and I think they're a little bit on the lackluster side. Okay, now let's look at this. This is low, but not very low compared to this. So that means this servo is probably a little bit high. Camera crew, if you go behind me, can you see better? So I'm gonna go to this 1.5 millimeter and just loosen this here. This grub screw, I'm gonna let go of it. Okay, that's gonna allow me to bring this out, but I need to bring it out in such a way that we can also make this work. Now, sometimes these can be a little bit twisted, so I might need to overshoot just a hair. And I'm gonna just make sure that I'm even as I can get it. Grub screw's tight. Now that's, by normal standards, that's pretty close, but I can bring this down just a hair, and that's gonna bring this down as well. So I'm gonna go up in here with 1.5 millimeter. I'm gonna loosen this set screw, the grub screw, and I'm gonna just slide it into the shaft a little bit. The shaft is allowed to move up and down then, okay? And then I'm gonna tighten it. So that's how you do your mechanical trim adjustments on your surfaces, so that all your surfaces line up natively in the home position. Cam crew, can you get that angle for us? And then I'm gonna just go left, right. This one likes to stick over here. That one seems to go back to home position better, but you see this one? It doesn't always make it all the way. So if a servo fails, it'll be this one, okay? I don't think it's gonna fail, but if it fails, it's gonna be that one. Now, let's look from that end facing me. The elevator is low, okay? Because it's low, neutrally, I'm gonna wiggle it, make sure it's not just doing like what that aileron was. It's low because we set the ball link at the wrong position, okay? Now, that's because we didn't know if it was centered, and it doesn't really matter. This does freak me out a little bit though. Look at that. If I go up, it relaxes back to the correct position. If I go down, it relaxes to the incorrect position. I'm gonna actually split the difference on this aileron because I think I might be a little bit in between. Okay, so I'm gonna go like right there, and I'm gonna retighten this. Now, why do I wanna do that? Because when I'm flying, I'm either gonna be always going up or always going down with the aileron. It's gonna constantly be changing, okay? So now that we have those things set, let's get the elevator set. The elevator, throttle cut's on, throttle stick is down. I'm gonna lay this nose down on the plane stand. By the way, this Roban plane stand, Robart plane stand has been fine. I've been using it for years. It's like a $20 or $30 tool. We have this on the supplies page. It's the type of thing you just gotta get once in a while. Okay, see this? We gotta pop that off. Now, how do you pop off a ball link? Use one of these tools. And what you'll do is you'll come in here and you can either pry it off, or you get in deep enough that you use this thing to actually seat on top of that central part, and then it'll pull it apart. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll try to get in there. These are thick, by the way. If I had my way, this would be milled down to almost a blade. So you could get into the ball link on some of these, because you can't always get in on around them. So then you pop it and it just pulls it right out. Now, we know we need that to go out so that this elevator goes up and it's more neutrally centered. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna rotate it and pull it out. So that's one way you can do it, or you can leave it on board, but I just wanted to show you. Usually I have to grab with a pair of pliers back by a Z-bend, because these are sometimes really hard to turn out. So there's 1/2, there's 1, there's 1 1/2, there's 2. Now I'm gonna keep going. There's 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. And we haven't come off the end, but we're getting close to where we're out of threads, okay? There's 4.5, 5, and we're still pretty good. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4 half turns. So that way I know I got at least 2 full turns on there. And the reason I count is because about the first time you have a ball link rip off of an SU-27, it'll remind you not to let that happen again. Okay, so in and up. Now look where it's gonna go. I'm not snapping it on, but that looks pretty dang centered to me. Whoops, slid off. So I'm holding it so it's actually pressurized on the ball. I think I need to go half a turn out.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm gonna just try to grab it and just pull it out half a turn. I'm gonna slide it back onto the ball link and just press that in. How's it look on your side? It doesn't make full mechanical adjustment on both sides. Okay, out another half turn. Okay, that's probably what we're gonna get. That's gotta be about right, okay? Now, if you use these tools, you can put them back on as well, okay? So you can kind of straddle the ball and you can press it down like that. And it goes on without being quite as aggressive. Now, let's go ahead and get this thing back on the plane stand. And once we're on the plane stand, we've got it in such a way that it's close to level flight, but it's not quite there. Why do we care? Because we're about ready to start forward programming. Why do we do it in this order, you might be asking? Well, because you have to have all your mechanical stuff set up right. Elevator up, elevator down. Roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right. Take off flaps, landing crow in this case, okay? So that's on. Now the other thing is we can scroll over until we see this. We have min maxes, and I wanna go into telemetry right now. Vario is on there, so I'm gonna click into it. I'm gonna turn it to a switch and set it to switch C. I want it on if we have it down here, and I want the report to be super small change so that we can hear it, okay? And I'm gonna move the plane so you guys can hear. That's like as sensitive as it gets. Display is active. Excuse me, display is active. Now, I wanna go to volts, and I'm gonna set this to 4S. And I only want warning reports every 15 seconds upon the minimum voltage. I want a voice call out, okay? Now, we could set that timer. So let's set the timer to, let's set it to 8 minutes with a 1 out. Anything over 25 is gonna start it. At 1 minute, I want a voice call out. At 20 seconds, I want nothing. At 10 seconds, I want a voice countdown. And at expiration, I want tone and vibrate with a tone every minute thereafter. Throttle cuts on, but this will still start the timer. And then cancel clears it and resets it. So AS3X, off and safe. We gotta set that to actually do something, so it's not just displaying the condition of a switch. Now over here, we can see which switch that's impacting. Well, it's switching a flight mode, but it's not changing a switch, okay? So I'm gonna go down to System Setup, disconnect RF, go to Channel Assign. I'm gonna make an assignment. Let's just use 7 because it's easy to get to. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. You can highlight D and exercise it, or select it, then exercise D to activate it, or you can scroll all the way to the left and then back to the right 1 time and it'll be flight mode. So now channel 7 is gonna be impacted by the change of our switch D or flight mode. In this case, flight mode is controlled by D, so they're both gonna do the same thing. But if I made a change to my flight mode menu, it's gonna follow wherever I make the change, okay? That's why I call out flight mode. All right, so all those settings are set. We have the rotary knob making adjustments on aux 8. We have flight modes on aux 7. I'll show you exactly what that's gonna do. Remember, those aren't pluggable, so we're not giving anything up to do that, which is great, okay? Also, we have gear doing nothing right now, just so you know. It is invalidated. We don't have it actually called out with the wing type, and so it doesn't really matter. Gear actually defaults to like 14th channel or something like that. Okay, but we are gonna have a problem with this not being level because level flight attitude is gonna have to be set at some point here real shortly. So when we get ready to do that, we'll put some pillows or something under here to get this plane to right where it's flying level, okay? But we'll use the same plane stand. We can also shift this forward or back to try to accomplish the same, but it's a little harder to do that. Plus then I have to put the prop in a dangerous condition, because if I have my throttle cut off and I accidentally bump the throttle, I don't want it to blow up my stand. So throttle cuts on, and we all understand my rationalization for that now. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, roll right, yaw left, yaw right, takeoff flaps, landing flaps with crow. And we verify everything works the correct direction in all of the different settings. Okay, and also elevator correction. This is going down a little bit with regular takeoff flaps, and then it goes down a little bit more with landing flaps. But just to be clear, with crow, you don't need as much correction on the elevator. So 6 and 9% is about right, in my opinion. So in flap system, we have that set to nothing in normal flight. Then we have 6% and 9% for the elevator correction in the center column here, okay? So 0 crow, 50% crow. Then we were gonna go and set up Vario so we could see that. See how it says altitude? Cool. All sorts of stuff on here. There's your Vario. Now, if I go down here, you can hear it beep already just because it's so sensitive. Throttle cuts on, I verified. Okay. So on the display, I'll hold this up so you can hear it. Sinking, rising, neutral, okay? So that's what a Vario does, is it tells you when there is a variation in the barometric pressure, up or down. Now, that could be really annoying listening to R2-D2. So when you switch the switch to the middle or the top, it just shuts off. Now there's also another mix that I like to do, but I don't have to do it on this particular setting, and that is to make landing flaps only. I don't believe I'm gonna need landing flaps only. I believe I'm gonna only use crow to land this thing, but crow might be too aggressive. So if that happens, I'll go into takeoff flaps and I'll get a little bit of help, and then I'll land it and I'll make an adjustment to the amount of crow deflection that I have on there, which is 50%. We might back that off to like 20 or 30. But it just depends, because you can really make these planes sink and lose altitude quick, okay? All right, so that being said, now we have to do forward programming. And by the way, I kind of feel bad that we haven't shown you this, but you can stay there, camera crew. I'm just gonna plop this cover on here. That plane is done, it's built. You could fly it right now. You just wouldn't have the benefit of SAFE or AS3X, okay? That's gonna come together really quick at the end of this, okay? So this is the very last step in the radio setup. Forward programming, this is where we set up our gyro. First time setup, make sure everything is set, next. Make sure all that crap is right. Set it level, hit continue. This is just identifying the position of the receiver. So you don't have to be exactly dead level. That'll come at a later step, just so you know. So this says to put it on its nose and then click continue. So throttle cut is on. By the way, in forward programming, throttle cut is automatically demanded or set. One or the other or both. Continue. So now it knows where that sits inside the plane. Now let's verify that, because it's going to impact our capability to auto level and correct orientation wise. You can see that with this plane sitting forward, you see where that receiver is supposed to be? Mm-hmm. Does that look like it is right here?
Yep.
That looks the same to me. Can you see it? Okay. So with respect to the position of the receiver, we have now validated that that is correct. So we'll hit continue. You can manually set that, by the way, by highlighting this and changing it, okay? I'm gonna set it to 8 like it found. Gain channel select. This is gonna be rotary knob, and it did actually check it and found it. That's interesting. It does that sometimes, it doesn't. And I'm gonna hit apply. It's rebooting, throttle cuts on. If something were to go haywire, this would be a good time for it to do it, so just be aware. One dance, that means AS3X is active, but not necessarily on and not necessarily tuned, okay? So we can exit the main screen or return to forward programming. We're gonna return to forward programming, gyro settings, F mode setup, F mode channel. Highlight input, exercise switch D doesn't work, as you can see. So I'm gonna scroll down to aux 7 where F mode is set. Now I'm gonna look at 1, 2, and 3. If that doesn't change, you don't have it set and it won't impact change. Okay, in this mode, I want AS3X on. In this mode, I want AS3X off. In this mode, it's gonna be safe, so I do want AS3X on as well. I'm gonna hit next. I'll hit back out. First time safe setup. Safe is gonna be down here. Verify flight mode still shows up as the same channel and it is correct. Hit continue. Flight mode 3 is desired safe mode. This is where you have to level the plane like it's gonna fly. Okay, if I said yes to this, it would fly uphill very slightly. So I'm gonna grab a pillow. I'm gonna tip this up a little bit. Probably too much. Probably a little bit downhill.
Yeah, a little bit.
Ooh, that's really close, actually. I'm looking at the wing, the angle of incidence on the wing. That's close. I agree, it might be a little bit high. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide this out and see if it'll squish down through more of the material of the pillow.
Yeah.
So you just get and you sight along the plane. That looks pretty close. It's not perfect. I would rather fly very slightly downhill than very slightly uphill, because in a glide, you're not gonna stall if you're going downhill, but you will stall if you go uphill eventually. Okay, you'll get into a high-speed stall if you're going real fast too, if you're not careful. That looks pretty good laterally for pitch and roll. So now I'm gonna level, model, and capture attitude. I'm gonna do it again. That's weird. Here's why it's weird. Because it's mounted to the inside of this frame, okay? So this body is not square here. It's kicked at an angle and it's kicked at an angle. I'm gonna press it and make sure it's still stationary and make sure that our China glue didn't let loose. Sometimes that happens. Level, model, and capture attitude. Ooh, look at that. I press it in and it actually changed just slightly more. Because it changed, I'm gonna do it again until I'm satisfied. Now, did we roll a little bit? I don't think so. I think we're good there. I think we're good. Okay, so in that case, at this point, we could potentially leave the pillow off. So camera crew back here. So I'm gonna just go back here and go to next. Now, in flight mode 3, safe is going to be self-level angle demand. There's also envelope, so it's just your limits. I want self-level and angle demand, and I want to open up all of the envelopes to the highest value that it will let me put in. This is going to let me pitch and roll as much as possible without giving up the auto leveling. I kind of wish we could just do auto leveling and not have envelope, because I don't really care about envelope. Just figure it out when I turn it on, similar to panic. Now, in this mode, I want it off. That's why it says inhibit. In this mode, I want it off. So that's why it says inhibit it. And then these values don't matter, okay? So I'm gonna hit next. It's gonna apply and it's gonna reboot the receiver. Watch for 2 dances. 1, 2. Okay? So now we'll return to forward programming. Then we go to gyro settings. Now we can go to system setup and we can go to orientation. Whoops. Where is this thing?
Utilities.
It's under utilities. Nope, I want hand launch assist. So hand launch assist is currently inhibited. I'm gonna turn it on in flight mode 3, which is safe, okay? The G threshold is 1.5. And then the throttle threshold is 70. So if you don't have over 70% throttle, if you don't have over 55% throttle now, it's gonna assume you're not hand launching. It's gonna ignore that command. The duration is gonna be for 3 seconds with a pitch offset of 15 degrees. So I'm gonna put it back to 10. So it's just gonna be 10 more than what you're giving neutrally, which is nothing. So let's do 15, okay? We'll see how that works. Then, the only reason that works is if you're in safe. If you're in flight mode 2, off, or flight mode 1, AS3X, it's not gonna do it. Make sense? So it looks for a threshold of G's of 1.5 or greater with a throttle threshold of 55% or greater. And then if that is true, and that is true, then it will offset the pitch by 15% for a duration of 3 seconds as you are climbing out. Pretty cool, huh? Simple to set up too. Then utilities, let's do a gyro response test. Okay, so now in this setting, throttle cuts on, throttle sticks down. You don't have to really worry about it. It's gonna move. I'm in AS3X, not safe. I'm gonna pull this pillow out. It's not necessary for this part of the test. My cat might freak out, didn't actually. So now when I move this, it's gonna aggressively change. It's resisting a downward pitch. It's resisting an upward pitch. It's resisting a yaw to the right. It's resisting a yaw to the left. Now it's resisting a roll to the left. Now it's resisting a roll to the right. Now you gotta look at both sides because they are two separate servos. It's resisting a roll to the left. It's resisting a roll to the right. Now let's deploy some flaps and see if it keeps that up. With Crow, it's resisting a roll to the left. It's resisting a roll to the right. You have to look at both surfaces. And then it's resisting a yaw to the left and a yaw to the right and a yaw to the left and an elevator and an elevator. Okay, so everything's working. Out of the flaps, I'm gonna hit back. That takes us out of that menu and you can see it's not doing anything now. I'm gonna bring this forward so we can give some throttle here in a moment. So now if you don't wanna use the gyro response test, you can also go into AS3X settings, change your gains from 1X to 4X. This knob, did we ever set that? Mm-hmm. So we're at 4X, walking out throttle cuts on. To give the AS3X a chance to be on, you have to give throttle. So that's full throttle, throttle cuts on. Now, gyro is all the way up. I have the rotary knob pulled all the way up. So now we'll see resist, 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 resist. Resist, 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 resist. This is very, very easy to see. Okay, camera crew? If you guys can't see, I'd be amazed. Okay, so as I lift the swing, it's gonna resist, resist, resist as it goes down. Elevator up, elevator down. Yaw left, yaw right. Up, down. Okay, we've checked all the directions of travel. They're going in the right directions, but we need to make sure it works in takeoff flaps and landing flaps. Resist, 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 resist. Then we're gonna go to landing flaps, which is Crow. Resist, 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 resist. Remember, it can only resist so much because it can only go up further than where it is so much. And it resisted in all axis. Now, I'm gonna take and move this, and I'm gonna turn it off. This is AS3X, off, on. Okay, now safe, on. Watch your ailerons, they're trying to right the airplane. Quickest route to level. Quickest route to level. So you find the medium point, then look at your elevator. In a downward, you're going straight down, it's gonna try to come out of a climb or out of a dive. And then from this situation, it's gonna try to come out of a climb until it's level. Remember, AS3X is also working. So if I go back to off, nothing happens. If I go to AS3X, now watch the knob. I'm gonna go ahead and do a cyclical movement. And I'm gonna turn my knob. This is 4X, that's 2X, that's 0X. There's about 1, there's about 2, there's about 3, there's about 4. I've just turned the knob all the way up. Now I'm turning it back to the middle. I like my rotary knob to be in about the middle position. So 4X is probably too much for this plane. So I'm gonna change 4X down to like 1X. Okay, because I can guarantee you that thing is gonna oscillate. Okay, so what do? We click, we scroll back down to forward programming. We do the gyro settings, AS3X settings, and then we change this 4X down to 1X. Then we walk back out and we make sure everything works. Throttle cuts on. We've already armed the circuit, so we don't need to arm it again. Working. See how much less aggressive it is? But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just put this up like this because it's kind of a big plane. It's hard to wiggle. Okay? Move, 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 move. Move, move. Gains all the way up. Off. On. Gains all the way down, but still on. Halfway. That's where I expect it to be. That's where I expect it to be when I'm flying. That's where I expect it to be. That's pretty dang good. I'm happy with that. So guys, this Pulse by Kavan, available from China Hobby Lines, through our links in the video description below, is gonna be an amazing flight experience. I can already tell it's gonna be a good flying plane. We've had a couple of gripes with the build, but they're pretty minor. My biggest gripe right now that might be lasting is that this servo may not be kosher for some reason. I'm a little bit concerned. The good news is ailerons are redundant surfaces, except for when it comes to crow. Because with crow, if you deploy crow and you've only got one that goes up, you're gonna roll your plane significantly, okay? So you gotta make sure your ailerons are both working as expected and as prescribed. All the surfaces are moving. I have safe, I have auto leveling, I have limited bank angles. By the way, from safe, sticks down and over, out of safe. Not a big difference because we don't have a big difference in limited bank angles. So we are allowed to go 90 degrees and 75 degrees instead of like 60 and 45 or whatever they do by default, okay? So this is gonna be super exciting. Can't wait to show it. Throttle cuts on. We also have the Vario activated. We also have the voltage, and look at all these telemetry pieces you get as you scroll. And by the way, you do get the receiver voltage as well, 5.3 for your BEC, okay? You can tell your min max for volts and altitude. It's like if you're flying along, this is gonna keep track of the min and the max. So when you load the circuit, if it goes way down, you know you're sagging, okay? Even if it recovers, okay? Pretty cool. And there's your Vario. You can chart this slower and you can chart bigger movements. So it's less obnoxious for those of you that don't want to listen to R2-D2 talking to you in your ear. But my expectation is if I'm thermaling with this ship, which I doubt I will, it is relatively heavy for thermaling, but it's better than some planes we have. And 2.2 meters is a good size, but that cabin's really light, okay? Which is why I think it tolerates the high speed, intense flying that I like to do not as good, okay? Because that long carbon fiber boom in combination with push rods that are not super sturdy, it just doesn't have quite the control authority I would like on a V-tail. This feels like it's gonna have better control authority. The imperfections are minor, meaning the soft foam that gets actuated from here, they transmit enough of the mechanical force out here that that bending is not gonna be a big deal. I don't think so. Maybe it will. Maybe it's gonna suck. But either way, we'll tell you the full truth, nothing but the truth. So help us God, right here on Brian Phillips RC. This is evidently a V2. I don't know about the V1. We have no basis for comparison. So as far as we're concerned, it is a V1, okay? So that all being understood, thanks China Hobby Lines for working with us. We'll be using the 2200 4S, and that is a 30C pack. We'll see if it's a problem. And then probably what we'll do as a backup plan, we will have this 3200 50C pack. And so we'll just have to bring that back a little bit in the bay so that we can get the center of gravity to work out, which we of course marked earlier on in the video. And just to remind you, this is equipped with an XT60, so you can usually cram an IC or an EC3 into an XT60 equipped airplane. But if you don't want to do that, you can also use adapters that will take you from, well, actually you'd want to go the other way. You can go from an IC3 to an XT60 like this, something like that, okay? So then this would go on to the end of your battery and then plug in your XT60. Again, this is assuming you're not gonna get the provided options. Now, we will try to link to an appropriately sized battery if we have any issues with these batteries, because we understand if you're ordering this plane from China Hobby Lines, you're probably gonna wanna get the batteries while you're at China Hobby Lines. So that being said, we've done 3 planes so far for China Hobby Lines. They're starting to carry a few. We're really excited for them. They seem to be taking good products and either making them better or just offering products that maybe weren't available or weren't readily available before because of one reason or another. I don't understand what Hobby King was doing with that Super Tucano. That plane is awesome. And I have a lot of planes, guys. So if you're wondering if I have a basis for comparison, I have a huge basis for comparison. And that plane has presence. It is almost impeccable. Every time I fly it, I like it more. And every time I fly it, I think, what the heck? Why did Hobby King ever let this go? So I think they might have had some issues with their supply chain that they couldn't resolve. China Hobby Lines evidently resolved those things. So thank you for doing that, because that plane is sweet. Also, I have no idea if this cabin is going to be great because we haven't flown it yet, but it does feel solid. It kind of reminds me of the Fox from FMS, but smaller, okay? Our Fox from FMS is 3 meters. It's huge, and that thing is just a monster. By the way, very well done, but also heavy, okay? This feels like it might be a little bit lighter on its feet, and we might get some of the trade-offs of a better engineered plane, but they have a lot of weight in the quick detach of the center mass of this airplane. That all being understood, it feels like it's got plenty of thrust. It's gonna move through the air okay, and we're gonna pull out of the hole really good. With AS3X Plus on our Spectrum gear, I think this thing is gonna feel and fly totally locked in. So cannot wait to get in the air. I'm really annoyed that the sun set on me like it always does. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're not cutting corners so you guys can follow along and actually do it right. Occasionally, we do not solder things that you could solder. For whatever reason tonight, we decided we would just go ahead and solder stuff, and that probably put us over the edge. I also want to make one more aside. I noticed this while I was off camera for about 2 minutes when we were done filming earlier. The servos get into this noise. And I've heard this on many, many, many airplanes. But a lot of times there's a distinction between an AS3X or an A3 or some sort of a, I'm just trying to think of a few other brands. Just whatever stabilizer you've got, whether it be a, Predator branded stabilizer or something from Arrows.
Like a reflex.
A reflex, yeah, that sort of thing. You will tend to see some overcorrection oscillation at still. You'll sometimes hear them vibrate. But what I'm hearing here is servos that can't find the fine-tuned position. And so they never shut up, which is annoying. And I'll prove it to you. AS3X is off. And I'm putting my mic is right here. I want you guys to hear that. I can feel it. It's like a heartbeat. So I don't know if that's AS3X overcompensating or the servo just can't quite find that absolute position, okay? When and if that happens, what I like to do is I will bump my controls. By the way, the rudder, we never centered it, but to be honest, I think it's so close. Do we need to center that, you think?
It looks really close.
My issue with centering the servo on a rudder is that we almost always have a tiny little bit of offset on the rudder. I hope that doesn't bite me, because if this thing flies straight as an arrow except for the yaw, then it'll be my fault. I just want you guys to hear that noise, because that noise can sometimes mean that you have an inferior servo, meaning it's not powerful enough to overwhelm a pinched hinge, or you've got a hinge with a little bit of sticky glue that's stuck in it, in a weird spot like on the knuckles of those weird overlapping hinges, and it's resisting and fighting. Or you're at the end of a stroke and it's like kind of can't quite find its home position because it's got enough pushback from the surface. Okay, so if you're hearing that, it's not necessarily a huge problem, but it could also be something to keep an eye on, okay? Just like this aileron that didn't want to come back to the full home position. Now, there is one other setting we didn't play with, and I just want to show you that when you do a dual aileron setting, you can do differential if you want. And a lot of times on sailplanes, people will turn on differential, and they'll just do a small percentage. Maybe they'll do 50%. So like what differential does is it means that the one that goes up in a positive sense, the upward movement will be bigger than the downward movement. So expressed by 100%, then this would mean that the one that's going up is the only one that goes up, okay? See, only up, okay? Now, expressed as a negative value, it's gonna be the one that goes down is the only one that goes down, right? See that? Compared to that, that would be wonky as all get out. So you might set a little bit of differential if you want on a sailplane, but like, to be honest with you, I don't know that it necessarily makes a big difference. Now, you could also set that to a middle switch position where I want differential or not, just so I could test the theory, okay? So I'll put that on the middle step, but then I also have the vario down here. So we've got our normal flight mode where we don't have differential, then we have differential for 50%, and then we have vario, okay? All right, throttle cuts on, timer set to 8 minutes. This thing is ready to rock and roll. I can't wait to see it in the air. We hope that you found some value from watching this video. If you didn't find value, smash the like button, click the bell for notifications, and maybe the next time will be better. But if you did enjoy it, definitely smash the like button, click the bell for notifications when you subscribe, and obviously buy things from the links in the video description below. The best way to support Brian Phillips RC financially, beyond just watching the videos, which of course cost you nothing, other than watching an ad 2 or 3 times through a 17-hour video, would be buying planes from the links in the video description below. That might mean buying the plane, it might mean buying the battery, it might mean buying the receiver, or a combination of receiver, transmitter, charger, whatever it happens to be. If you follow the link and then you find other stuff while you're there, that's fine, we'll be credited for that. But we do earn commissions based on what you buy, but only if you follow the links. If you don't follow the links, it's as though we did nothing. They won't know that we sent you and they won't pay us anything. And so at the end of the day, we put a lot of time, effort, and money into doing this channel. And so we want you guys to help us out if you can, if you feel obligated. That's not what we're trying to do, but what we do want you to do is if you get any value out of this, just buy from the links. You'll help pay us back for our efforts. And obviously we're reinvesting all of it into the hobby, whether that be going to Jonal and visiting with people or building structures, putting in infrastructure here at the aerodrome on Brian Phillips RC, because we are spending a lot on that, like a lot, 7 figures almost. So it will be when it's done. So anyway, we'll probably never make it up, but that's okay because I love this hobby and I want you guys to understand that. I love this hobby. I want to see it grow. I want you to grow. I want you in the hobby. I want you to drag your kids into it. I want you to drag your dad and your cousins and your grandpa and your sisters and your mother and everybody that you know, that you love, that you want to enjoy a wholesome, family-friendly experience into this hobby. We want you to get them with us, okay? And then they can watch our videos and we'll help get them going, okay? Because we know there's a steep learning curve in this hobby and we'll help get you there. And we're not gonna just do it with a bunch of sales pitches, okay? Sure, we want you to buy this if it's your cup of tea, but if this thing is terrible, we want you to buy the thing that's not terrible. That's where Brian Phillips RC comes in at bprc.me. You can compare and contrast this exact model to immediate competitive brands that are available either today or maybe they're out of stock and coming back soon. But one way or another, you can go to brianphillipsrc.com and sort by type. You can find this plane and say, what's it up against? Is it more expensive? Is it cheaper? Is it better? Is it worse? And you get to make the decision because we try not to do that for you. We just showcase the way it is. We set them up almost exactly the same every time so that you can follow along and learn how to do this. But then also you have a baseline because it's always the same guy flying at the same location using similar setup, okay? So we want to showcase whether or not the products can do it, but we also want you to understand that you can use me as a basis for your considerations. Because a picture online that's a 3D rendering from some CAD program is definitely not the same as watching Brian crash it into a tree. So at the end of the day, we hope we answered some questions. Kavan looks like a nice plane. A couple of small details that we pick on you about, namely the screw back here, the servo, improper decal allocation. You know, those things are totally resolvable, okay? So we don't mean to beat up any one particular brand. Obviously, I do that with my elbow in trees. We try to liberally apply the criticism to these models, but anybody who builds these models professionally and sells them to us is an insane person because there's a billion easier ways to make money in this marketplace, but they choose to make an airplane. So we want to help them win and we want to help the distributors that make money on it win as well as the companies that build the electronics that we use to make all this stuff work. We want all of them to win, but we just don't want them to win on your back. So if this thing sucks, we'll go to the next one over, okay? But we also don't want to beat them up for no reason. So we're just pointing out things that we see would be easy to fix. We want to do it in a way that's fair and manageable, but also pays homage to the people that really matter to us, which is you, okay? But if they don't exist, we don't have the things we want. So we need some crazy people that are dumb enough to put this stuff together and sell it in the marketplace. Okay, so let's reward them with some money once in a while, and let's get the good ones. We can help steer the ship where we want the ship to be, which is high quality, reasonable price, delivered on a reasonable basis, imported or built locally, built, here without insane tariffs, that sort of thing will help steer the ship. I was disappointed there was no LEDs on this, by the way. This is a big airplane. That being said, LEDs are not a make or break for me on sailplanes because I tend to not sailplanes at night, with the exception of the Conchendo 2.0 and
the Night Radian.
The Night Radian, yeah. And the Night Timber X. I mean, there's just not that many planes, but speaking of sailplanes, you said that right, by the way. Speaking of sailplanes, I prefer to see sailplanes in better lighting. So it doesn't seem to be as big a deal that these don't have LEDs, but it is also a little bit annoying, especially with a breakout board where they could easily steal some power and put a nav light there, a nav light there, and a nav light here. This doesn't even have an actuation on the bottom of the fuse. They could have had a white light here that's just wired in. Would have been perfect. By the way, what are my expectations for LEDs, camera crew? Nav lights that are realistic and in the correct position and not flashing, and a tail light if possible. Anti-crash beacons are always fun. Landing lights are fun, and they're very much appreciated. By the way, the 3-meter Fox has a lot of them, right? Or does it?
I don't think it does.
What am I thinking of that has them? Maybe I'm thinking of the Beaver. Either way, all I know is this. This plane looks good, but it'd look better with some LEDs. And that's pretty much true of everybody. We bring that up every time we see it. So it's a target-rich environment. All right, that's all we got for you today. Here on Brian Phillips RC, we try to leave no stone unturned, and we think we did it successfully on this plane. So thanks to China Hobby Lines for working with us, Spectrum, and of course, Kavan through China Hobby Lines. So we hope this thing is great, and we hope we answered all your questions. If we didn't, leave it in the comments below. If you want to support us and you don't want to buy this, we have Patreon for monthly support, as well as PayPal for one-time donations, or we can do YouTube members and YouTube super thanks, all of which are appreciated, but we really prefer you just redirect your resources into getting the plane, helicopter, VTOL, battery, charger, or whatever it is that you need that we helped cover, because then that keeps our little RC ecosystem going. So thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, and come back for more.